Hello, everybody, and thanks for being here. We're Hide and Speak. We stream every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Our topics are privacy, free speech, internet freedom. We're the community behind vp.net. If you guys, anybody wants to ask us a question, just for Q&A, just type capital Q, colon, and then type your question, and we can respond to it. So what not to expect to us, no religion, no partisan politics, left, right, it's all the same to us. The opinions expressed by members of our panel are their own personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect the views of Hide and Speak or vp.net. Just want to say hello, everybody. I'm Shane. I'm the Chief Operating Officer behind vp.net, and here's Chris.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris, the Chief Marketing Officer from vp.net, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Lovely. Thanks for being here. We also have Nathan. Say hello.
Yeah, I'm Nathan. I work on the design and marketing team for vp.net. I'm happy to be here and really excited for today's discussion. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Well, thanks for being here. It's wonderful to have you. And most wonderful Suzy, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Suzy. I'm a former employee from FEMA, Department of Homeland Security. Just here about privacy, and I advocate for it.
Awesome. And privacy is important to all of us. I just want to introduce some guests today. Jonathan, you are our first hero of the week, ExStaticJ. You led the effort to ban flock cameras in Bend, Oregon. So you're pushing that movement forward. Jonathan, welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Awesome. It's always wonderful to have you. Just give us so much insight, and it's just so wonderful hearing all your stories. And also, we have Dan Haley, Chief Legal Officer for Flock Safety. Dan, thank you for joining the conversation today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. It's nice to see you. And then we have Skylor Hearn, Chief Deputy, Chambers County Sheriff's Office. Skylor, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Wonderful. So today we're going to be discussing flock and community things. And Chris, I know you have a little bit to say.
Absolutely. I just have a little parable that I think will kind of help set the tone for the conversation we're trying to have today. So two neighbors headed out to a lake to go fishing one day. One neighbor, he had a fishing pole, and he thought that was the best way he could possibly catch fish. And the other neighbor, he brought some traps, and he thought that was the best way to catch fish. And they argued a whole day long. The first neighbor was saying, fishing rod, that's the best way to go. If you're using traps, you're just lazy. And the other guy said, well, no, you're just wasting your energy. The traps are the best way to go. And they argued back and forth. And the next thing I knew, the sun set, and neither one of them caught any fish. So they both set out that day with the exact same goal in mind. And both of them were unsuccessful because they spent the whole day arguing over what the best way to do it was. And I wanted to remind everybody that everybody here on the stream today, we all have the same goal in mind. We want to keep our friends and our family safe. And we just have different ideas maybe about how to get there. So we want to have a nice, open, and civil conversation, and just remember that we're all just people here just trying to do the best we can to keep everyone safe. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much there, Chris. Yeah, and that's the thing is like the things we have in common are, we have communities to protect. I work with, information security. And I also have a fiduciary duty to, my customers, and not just our customers, but, our community base to, protect their information. And we kind of see like the levels of, as I discussed with you guys before the show, is just absolute wickedness out there. And, there's people that don't play by the rules when they get their hands on this information or the things that they do with people's information. We just saw, some of the biggest hacks happen, especially, Discord's pushing out this ID thing come the first. And they just had a massive breach. These things are just, it's not uncommon. It's ramping up in its efforts, and it can be a lot to talk about. But today we're going to talk about flock and flock safety. So Dan, what was the motivation behind starting flock safety?
So at the risk of sounding like I'm playing to the audience, the motivation was very straightforward, and it was two-pronged. Our founder recognized that there was tremendous potential in evolving technologies to help law enforcement investigate, solve crimes to make communities safer. And he also recognized that technology would be very powerful and would become more powerful over time. And so it needed to be engineered in a way that respects civil liberties and provides transparency in its use. And so Flock was founded on that dual principle. And to this day, It's operated on that dual principle. It's why I joined the company roughly 8 months ago. I met the CEO, Garrett Langley, and had 3 hours of conversation that was just geeking out over the kind of core proposition that I think underlies this discussion, the trade-off and the balance between public safety, civil liberties, and the evolution of these technologies. And we know that is going to, in every single community, be a debate. And we know that on the national level, that is going to continue to be a debate. What I didn't know 8 months ago was the way the national landscape would evolve very, very quickly in a way that just brought a lot of these issues just rocketing to the forefront of people's perceptions and raised the temperature on this discussion really radically. But the core proposition is still the same. And we recognize that people have legitimate concerns, have always had legitimate concerns about privacy, about government surveillance, about government authority. And we believe we have built tools that allow communities that choose to use them, first of all, to control their information, to control who it's shared with, to control who has access to it. And second of all, to provide transparency. Flock at its base, and you guys will stop me when I have a tendency to filibuster. You guys will stop me when I've talked too long, I trust. But at its base, a flock camera sits up on a pole and it takes a photograph of every car that passes by. And that is a photograph of the exterior rear of the car. It's not capturing an image of the driver. The camera has no idea who's driving, has no idea any demographic information about who's driving or who's a passenger. It's just getting a photograph of the rear of the vehicle. And then the system analyzes that photograph and creates what's called a vehicle fingerprint. And that means the license plate is one portion of that. And so we all, if we're driving on the roads, we're required to outwardly display a license plate in order to correlate the vehicle with its owner. And so that's a data point, but a data point might be a bumper sticker or a dented fender or a mismatched hubcap or a scratch or a roof rack or whatever. And those photographs, they go into the cloud, and the vast majority of those photographs exist for 30 days and then are deleted with no human being ever seeing them. Far higher than 99% of those photographs are never accessed by anyone. And they're automatically deleted. This is one of the features that was deliberately engineered into the tool in recognition of the issues that the tool raises. They're automatically deleted in 30 days. That is Flock's default. It is the standard used by most of our clients. Now, that default can be altered. There are jurisdictions in the country that have shorter retention periods mandated by statute, and we accommodate that. So those images last less than 30 days. And there are some jurisdictions, although not many, that mandate that those images be preserved for a longer period of time. And so we accommodate that. But the vast majority of them go away never having been accessed. When a law enforcement officer has reason to believe that a vehicle has been involved in commission of a crime, they can search the network. And that is, depending on where they are, the network means either their cameras in their community, if they're a community that chooses to keep the data in their proverbial four walls, or it's their cameras and individual communities they've chosen to share their camera feeds with, or some communities opt into what's called the National Lookup Network. And so every other community that is part of that network, their cameras gets pinged as well. And if there's a hit on that vehicle that they're searching for, then they get that image. And that's the small percentage of those images that are ever accessed before being deleted. And importantly, when that action is taken, when that search is conducted, the system creates a permanent log of that use. And the officer is required to enter into their fields they have to fill out, including search reason, which is in the past was a free-form field. We got some feedback from privacy advocates and from some of our communities that free-form field allowed for too much discretion, allowed for too much, in some cases, obfuscation. So some officers would enter crime, for example, or suspicion. So now, as of 2 months ago, that field is a drop-down. It's called a NIBRS code, and Skylor can tell us more about what those are, but they're nationally uniform offense codes. So you have to pick a code, you have to designate why you're making the search. It logs the username making the search, the time, the reason, and that is a permanent, immutable, cannot be altered, cannot be tampered with log that is a matter of public record. So the system creates not only automatic deletion, so protection of the data and auto deletion of the data, but a log so that if the system is abused, and it occasionally is abused, it's used by human beings, and that happens. But if it's abused, the evidence of that abuse or even just misuse is right there in the system. When there are instances of misuse that are in the press, the reason they're in the press is because the tool created a record that is a public record that can be seen and discovered, and then those people are held accountable. And we feel that is a good balance. On the other end of the spectrum, this technology contributes to the solving of crime across the country every single day. And we're not just talking about home theft, although there's a lot of that. We're not just talking about auto theft, although there's a lot of that. Kidnapped kids are returned home much faster with this technology. Sex trafficking rings are broken up all across the country due to this technology. Homicides are solved due to this technology. A couple months ago, national news, the Brown shooter, the chief of police in Providence, Rhode Island said that but for Flock, but for our technology, that shooter probably never would have been found. He'd be rotting in a storage facility in New Hampshire with all the people who know him and all the people who went to school with him wondering if they were going to be next. It's very, very powerful. It contributes to a lot of good in the world. We're very proud of it. I'm going to stop talking now. I feel like I can keep.
No, you keep going, and that's the thing. This is that's what this is all about. Is that we offer a voice, and that voice extends to anybody. You know, whether or
It's
not
great
you.
information.
Well, I
imagine
appreciate
that
it. I think
information.
the last thing I would say is we believe very strongly that in the democratic process, and if a community makes a decision, as Bend, Oregon did, with some advocacy from Jonathan, who's on my screen, we respect that decision. We regret it. We believe that crime will go up in Bend, Oregon as a result, and they may make a different decision down the road. But that is not. That's how it's supposed to work, in a way that the fact that communities make those decisions is the best argument against the notion that this technology creates an inevitable slippery slope toward a surveillance state. Communities decide to not participate, and that's fine. But we do strive always to ensure that those discussions and those debates are fact-based, and they aren't always. I'm not super familiar with what how it all shook out in Bend, and maybe Jonathan can talk some about that. But in a lot of communities, there's just a lot of hyperbole, a lot of false information. Right now, there are a lot of false claims about ICE access to the data that gets people very frightened, and we understand why that gets people very frightened. It's not accurate. And when we have an opportunity to make our case and to have these conversations, it's why I'm here today, frankly. We accept every opportunity to talk about this stuff, because when people understand it, we believe that they tend to make a decision in favor of the benefits of the technology with the safeguards. And that last part is very, very important.
And it is important. That's the thing. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. It is very insightful, and it's as I said, like with the wicked in the world, I used to ask this question, why do bad things happen to good people? And I no longer ask that question. As far as like things like my opinions on crime going up, it's just there's always going to be crime, and that's the thing is it's just there's always going to be crime. But the thing is with technology is a lot of people, they don't understand things. I can if I were to say 1% of what it is that I do and what I work with. People, they turn their head sideways at me, and it's almost as if I'm speaking rocket science and Chinese at the same time to them. So it can be difficult to explain these technologies to people and what it is that they offer, right? Skylor, how would you describe flock safety to someone who isn't familiar with the technology?
I guess from the perspective of the public, right? It's a camera, it's a recording system in public spaces generally. There are some private entities that choose to put it on their own private property, but from the government standpoint, right? It's in public spaces, and it is not I think for me, I've been dealing with LPR in general for about 15 years. And the hardest thing to explain to legislators and to the public, it's not a traffic tool. It is a crime fighting tool. And part of that argument is when we talk about retention and how long you should keep it, the value in it is really with those murders and kidnappings and sexual assaults and things that you may not know about for 30 days or 45 days or 6 months or 3 years. And trying to understand that it is a crime fighting tool, not a traffic enforcement tool, which kind of gets blurred with some of the old red light camera technology and things that for the most part, I think across the country, I know in Texas, all of that's been banned. But I think it still gets kind of conflated into this technology, and it's not the same thing. So we use Flock. Chambers County is a Flock subscriber. We use the technology, and as Dan said, we use it every day. It solves crimes. Again, it solves all kind of crimes from low-level crime to homicides. There have been cases in my past with LPR in general, right, where you have a serial rapist, and you don't know you have a serial rapist until the second rape, right, or the third rape. And if they're moving about over a geographic area, especially in rural parts of the country or rural Texas, having some kind of information that you could go and look and say, is there any commonality to any vehicles traveling in these areas where these crimes are happening? We had the same thing in East Texas with arsons at Black churches. There were several churches were set on fire in those communities, all kind of a larger geographic area where the only leads that you could have potentially were license plate reader reads over time. And so one of those arguments again for retention is the crimes that go unsolved, that you don't have the information for, you need the data. And much of that is much longer than 30 days. And so like for Texas, for instance, we've been very fortunate from the criminal justice side of the house to be able to have a longer retention period than other communities and other states do. And we take advantage of that. But also, I think to everybody's point, right? The technology is not the problem. It's how you use the technology. And whether it's facial recognition, whether it's license plate readers, you've got to have proper guardrails in place on the law, on our side, to prevent misuse. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Agencies will get the cool new thing and just start deploying it without any kind of policy, without any kind of guardrails in place. And that's usually who makes the news. And that's usually why we lose good tools. So
Yeah,
It makes
exactly.
sense, and thank you so much for explaining that. That clears things up, and to get it from your perspective means a lot. And that's the thing with these new tools and everything. It makes sense. It's for anywhere, a company, probably a department anywhere. You get them, and then it's like, you press the wrong button, and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to be on YouTube because of this. That's it's the world we live in right now. And but thank you so much for sharing that. Let's see. Dan, can you share independently verifiable data on how many cases have been solved with the help of Flock systems?
Oh gosh, my comms people can, my marketing people can. I went to law school in part because numbers don't adhere to my brain, but there have been a number of academic studies. One people discount because it was sponsored by us. We sponsored a group of academics at the University of at Georgia Tech to study the data, and they determined that roughly 10% of crime in the United States is solved in some way using a lead that comes from a Flock camera. There's been others more independent, but I don't have those at my fingertips. I'm sorry.
Hey, no worries. And that's the thing too, is like that's a lot of me doing operations. I'll get asked questions with things, and I have to turn it over to Chris. He's the numbers guy. I'm more the people and the information. He's the numbers.
Dan,
Skylor, what?
I was just going to chime in on that. We talked earlier about where Chambers County sits, right? Where we border Harris County, which is Houston, Texas. 4 or 5 million people next door to our county of 60,000. And the majority, we're not a high crime county when it comes to violent crime. Very fortunate for that. But the majority of our crime tends to be criminals that come in, and the country is very transient, more so than it was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They come in from Harris County, different parts of Harris. They victimize other communities than where they live in, and they slip across the county line, rape, steal, burglarize, shoot. We had a shooting the other day on a deal, and then they slip back across and they disappear into 6 million people. So the ability, again, the vehicle, I think what I would try to say, the biggest tie to crime fighting is that most crime, I think there's stats out there, 90% of crime is connected to a vehicle. Either the suspects are in the vehicle and they're traveling to where they're committing the crime, or the vehicle is the fruit of the crime. But somewhere 90% of all crime is tied to a vehicle, and it's why license plate reader data is so critical to being able to solve it.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much. Skylor, what concrete efficiency gains have you personally seen in understaffed departments using Flock? Has it helped in any way?
Well, yeah, again, it's a data source, right? Just like any other technology, facial recognition, anything else, the technology does not solve anything. It's a lead generator. You still have to have detective work. You still have to have good police work to prove a crime up. And a lot of times we got to remember, technology is exculpatory as well as inculpatory. So I can clear you as easy as I can include you sometimes using the same technology. And that's where that policy and those guardrails and those good uses come into play from the law enforcement side. Is it helps to exclude people as much as it does include people.
And that makes sense too. And that's
a great point.
It makes a great point. That's if you can use a process of elimination and rule out
in the old days, right? I started in law enforcement in '92 before in-car cameras, before body-worn cameras, before any of this technology existed, and it was the citizen, one of you, reporting what you saw in a flash in a horrific moment in your life, and you described generally a light-colored car, right? And so we're stopping every light-colored car that's going down the road in that area, and 99% of those people in those cars had nothing to do with that crime. But we're pulling you over, sometimes at gunpoint, taking you out, figuring out that you didn't have anything to do with that. You're not the right car, letting you go, going. And we did that. That was law enforcement for years. The technology gives us the ability to be more select and discretionary in those same kind of encounters. So we're not indiscriminately just stopping everyone that resembled the citizen's call. This gives us another tool to help us be more sniper than shotgun, right?
That is precisely what happened in the Brown case, and that one's super high profile, which is why I'll keep mentioning it. But this is the kind of thing that happens all the time, where if you followed that case, there was an individual who had an interaction with the shooter that he thought was just a little bit fishy, and he watched the guy get into his car and drive away. And after the shooting, several days after the shooting, he went and posted on Reddit, "The police ought to be looking for this guy who drove away from the area in a gray Nissan with Florida plates." That would not be an actionable lead multiple days after a shooting without this technology. But with this technology, they were able to do a search for a gray Nissan with Florida plates and very quickly identify the shooter's vehicle based on its travel pattern around the point of the shooting for multiple days. And then they were able to determine that he had left Rhode Island, gone to Massachusetts, swapped out the plates. So swapped out those Florida plates for Maine plates, but the system was able to say that's still the same car. And that's why ultimately the authorities were able to find that person in New Hampshire. That's just not the kind of thing that would be possible. That's why the chief says without Flock, that guy would just be rotting away in that storage facility and might never have been found.
And that's, it's good to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. Skylor, what kind of crimes is ALPR most effective at solving? Like, I like to go out in the community. I like to go do things. I live in lovely Hawaii. What can I feel safe about? What can I expect is kind of what I'm looking at here. What kind of crimes is ALPR most effective at solving?
Man, I would say it's almost all crimes, right? Again, any crime that involves a vehicle traveling from point A to point B, if they go through an area where those cameras are located and that information is captured, and they are either a victim, it's again, we're talking about crime, but we also use that same information for amber alerts and silver alerts and kind of the missing person kind of thing, to see if when a loved one calls. We get a lot of I-10, Interstate 10 runs through the middle of our county. So we have 34 miles of Interstate 10 from between Houston and Beaumont. A lot of travelers that are delayed from whatever reason, that they hadn't reached their destination, and we get these calls about missing loved ones, and we use that same data to try to figure out if that person has been through the county. I think Dan talked about earlier, human trafficking, human smuggling, drug smuggling, all of that interstate kind of crime it's a great tool for that, especially when if you have the ability to have more data, longer reads, right? When you finally catch that sex trafficker or that child trafficking group, and you're trying to prove more than just that one trip. You're trying to prove that they've been going from Houston to New Orleans every Thursday and every Friday for the last 6 months, moving human beings against their will. Having that data that you can go back and show the vehicles that this organization's using, and they're going back and forth, and they're only staying in 2 hours, and they're headed the other way, going back to New Orleans. It's very powerful to get people to get into court and convict people for these major trafficking crimes.
Thank you for sharing. And it like I said, it offers a lot of perspective, especially for me. working in information security, I look at data and data points all day. And that's the thing is like you connect data points to other data points. And then from there, you can interpolate data, get more information out of where there was no information, right? And I think that's a lot of the biggest concern with all of this is that, I preach all day, every day, especially with the social media and algorithms, you talk about car fingerprints, what's a unique identifier for a vehicle. And then we have that online with our own digital fingerprints, right? Our browsers, the patterns about us, the way we navigate through the digital world. And, we're all connected through all of our devices, cell phones, laptops, our TVs, and that's the thing is like back in the day, as I was growing up, it was, people like were saying like, they're watching you through the TV, man. Like they're watching you through the TV. And you understand like the TV has antennas. It can receive information stuff. I don't think they're watching us from the TV. But now they are watching us through the TV, right? They can listen in, and Google just, gave out a settlement for like what, $67 million. It's like a drop in the bucket for them. A large company like that, and they were listening in on people's cell phones with the new AI systems. And that's the kind of things that we look at. We actually take very seriously. It's not something that we play around with. It's fundamental, and especially with the cypherpunk movement that was set before us, that these things are the technologies that we use today, like such as HTTPS, like secure ways to view a website. These are the things that information travels in transit, and that's a lot of the thing is this information is traveling in transit and landing in a data center somewhere. We say things like, or only some people may have access to these things. Only a certain percentage of these things may be viewed. But that's the thing is we don't know who views these things. I've known sysadmins who have had God mode access to entire networks. And, that's the thing is why we work so hard and so diligently with zero trust architecture. It's just, when I go outside, I don't trust anybody. I'm not going to trust anybody. And that's just the thing. It's like I've been so let down, with the way things can be, living in Los Angeles and stuff. I've seen guns being pulled for no reason, and I've seen a lot of things in my day. So that's the thing is there is just nothing but craziness out there. The world is just one big it's just one big stage for what I would say is like the worst movie ever in some cases. Some of the things that we see in the news, we mentioned that, a lot of the bad just makes it to the news. We don't see a lot of the good things, but that's the thing is these bad things do happen. And it's good to get a perspective from the other side, because all I can do is as a person is observe and just kind of look at what's going on. And, what my opinion on it doesn't matter, right? It's a community thing. We can decide what's going to happen in our communities together, and then we have the gentlemen that that uphold order in our communities. So I thank you guys for this and for filling us in with this information. But that's the thing is working with data points and linking things together. My job is to unlink these things, right? To make sure that these data points don't connect back to something or somebody. And then not just in that sense of something or somebody, it's because of data transit. Like information is when you have to have absolute security on something, and whether it's a personnel file, whether it's an employee file, whether it's a project that you're uploading to a colleague, and your competition is some other company. These things are taken very seriously, and not just our field, but in many fields. And that's the thing. It's a sight to see, is all I have to say. Dan, Flock insists they only track cars, not people. If that's really the case, how does their data keep ending up with things like ICE? Did DHS suddenly start deporting vehicles?
So first of all, I'm going to take exception with that last part, that the data keeps ending up with ICE. So Flock doesn't have a contract with ICE. We don't have a contract with any of those agencies. But even if we did, every community that uses Flock controls access to its own data. So Flock doesn't own the data. We literally can't do anything with the data that our clients don't ask us to do. And that's limited to troubleshooting and occasionally technical support. that is a fact that people have a hard time with, and I'll tell you, well, have a hard time believing, but it's true. And I'll tell you, in situations like the Brown shooting or the Guthrie case right now, people flood us with requests. Why can't you just search your whole network, Flock? Can't you find this woman? Why can't you just do that? And they're puzzled when the answer is we can't. We don't do that. We don't have that access to the data. But in any event, there are communities that do share data with federal law enforcement. And to go back to the democratic process thing, that, not too many years ago, that wasn't a controversial proposition. It is now, for reasons that I don't think anybody finds mysterious. It's a highly controversial proposition, but different communities make different decisions in that regard.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that's the thing is like, it's not to play both sides of the fence or anything. It's kind of one of those things that I have to do critical thinking, right? And these are the questions that other people have, and that it is concerning to me. Is the thing is looking at all of this. It's hard for me to find the truth and know the truth. When I'm being presented with multiple different truths, and that's the thing is there's always more to the truth, right? There's always more to something.
Well, this is going to seem super trite, and I apologize, but just last night I'm watching. My teenage daughter made me watch the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie with her.
Yeah,
masterpiece. But right at the beginning, there's the press conference with the mayor of New York City and the CEO of the tech company, who is introduced as the CEO of the tech company that keeps New York City safe. And I turned to my daughter and said, he's going to be the secret bad guy. And he was. There's just these, cultural ingrained assumptions. And a lot of people have a very hard time with the notion that there are companies that exist with the intention of doing good, making money by doing good, without a doubt. But, there are a lot of people who they don't believe that. And that's okay. I don't, I know I'm not going to win that argument with them. But again, in these communities that are making that decision, our point of view is, as long as we have the opportunity to share our perspective and share the reality of our services, things tend to shake out, the way that they should, meaning the way the community decides in any given place.
absolutely. And we're working with other projects and stuff where, community voting and having that say is the, it's the most valuable thing. I have to ask these questions. They, as they come. So Flock claims on your website that you are the tech company eliminating crime, and that you, quote, build products and design systems with checks and balances to ensure the ethical use of your technology. However, numerous law enforcement officers across half a dozen states have been charged with stalking after allegedly using Flock cameras hundreds of times, each to stalk ex-spouses or other victims. Do you stand by your statement that your checks and balances have ensured the ethical use of your technology?
So first of all, human beings use the technology. Nobody can ensure the ethical use of any tool. But that said, we're talking about a system that is used thousands and thousands and thousands of times a day across the country. And there have been a handful of abuses. And those abuses, when they're reported on, they're always the same ones. And there's a reason for that. It kind of proves the point. They're very few and far between. And when they happen, again, to my earlier point, the system is engineered so that you cannot abuse that tool without creating a record of your transgression. And so a lot of communities audit their logs on a regular basis. We encourage every one of our users to audit their logs on a regular basis. That is how those abuses are discovered every single time. That is how those people are held accountable. They're often fired. They're sometimes prosecuted. And so, I don't want to be heard to say that's a good thing, because it's not. And I wish there were a way to build a system that no one could ever abuse. But I do think, if you think about all the tools we give law enforcement, tell me one that cannot be misused. Obviously, a gun, a badge, a cruiser, a uniform. The difference in this tool is if it is misused, the evidence of the misuse is right there in the tool, which is not true for, so far as I'm aware, any other tool that we give law enforcement.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And you make great points, and thank you so much. Jonathan,
Great.
it's nice to see you, buddy.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to speak about
Yeah,
something real quick. There's an article recently from Houston, and it was speaking about that, about how it tracks the officers and the searches that they're doing and stuff. And it says that Flock is committed to removing officer usernames from future audits. So, I mean, are you still going?
Yeah.
Like you were just saying that there's an audit log for everything so that they can be held accountable. But if the names are removed, how will there still be accountability?
Yeah, there's a distinction here. So an activist group recently used the very permissive public records law in Washington State, where Washington State, there was a court ruling recently that basically said anything that is a public record in Washington State is disclosable as a public record. And an activist group realized, well, this is an opportunity, and flooded Washington State with public records requests from all over the country, looking for Flock logs, aggregated that data and published it online. And that had a tremendous impact immediately on criminal investigations all across the country. The reason being that criminals were then able to search their license plate number, determine if they were being investigated, and see who was investigating them. So when we say we're removing officer names from those logs, we're talking about the public-facing logs. But every community still has a log of that they can access. It's just not a record that is created. So if, meaning in order to be disclosable, you have to have created and retained a record. If there is a search that is questionable in that log, the username is now obfuscated with a alphanumeric code, but the agency can remove that obfuscation from that particular record if they have reason to believe that there's been an abuse. So it's not that the username is deleted or redacted, it's that it is obscured because that is sensitive investigative information that people unfortunately found a way to put out in the world, which was very detrimental to countless investigations, and frankly was very dangerous to officers involved in very sensitive, dangerous investigations. If you're talking about somebody, think about somebody, Skylor mentioned that the technology is often used in connection with human and drug trafficking cases. You do not want the people who are the targets of those investigations knowing the names of the officers who are conducting them. That should not be public information. But it should be discoverable in the case that there is an abuse of the system. And so that's how we've squared that circle recently. Thank you for asking that question. It's important.
That's a great answer and question.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple more questions here for you guys. Skylor, do you think the checks and balances and audit process in place now is sufficient, or do you think it needs a little more improvement?
Well, I think whatever technology we're talking about. So today we're talking specifically about Flock, but there's other LPR technology providers out there, and we use others as well as Flock, and lots of agencies do. But whether it's facial recognition, whether it's LPR, you're still asking the provider to give you a base level of that checks and balance, right? It's imperative that the agencies put their own guardrails on top of that capability, because as Dan said earlier, the technology gives us the ability to do that, but at what frequency do we do that? And for us as the sheriff's office in Chambers County, the sheriff has us doing that monthly. So we do random audits to verify, to make sure again that we're doing the right things and we're not running the wrong things, because just like the deal with the running the girlfriend or running the ex or running the ex's new boyfriend or whatever. Unfortunately, that's been happening long before LPRs. It was driver's license databases and other databases where human beings do bad things. And it happens in every profession, right? Not just law enforcement. But having that ability, again, when the human being makes that mistake, to get in there and see it and then hold them accountable for it, that is the key. Because regardless maybe what the rest of the world thinks, none of us want bad things to happen or people to do bad things with technology, because then we lose the technology, we lose the capability, and it harms all the rest of us. And it doesn't matter if it happens in Texas or Los Angeles or New York. It usually requires some action that happens across the country, right? So we all want everything to work well. As an administrator, I want to make sure everybody's doing the right thing, using it appropriately, whatever databases they have access to, and that we're doing something to trust but verify that that's occurring, and have a legitimate system of doing that, so that not only can we tell the public, because again, I work for an elected official at a sheriff's office, right? My boss is elected by the people. The people ask him, "Hey, what about these flock cameras? What do we have anything to worry about? Can somebody abuse it?" Sure, somebody can abuse anything, but we have a system in place to catch that abuse when it happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Glad to hear that.
And I'll open up a lot of these questions too for everybody that I ask, for everybody to just chime in on. That's the thing, is we want to keep this chill atmosphere here and allow everybody to have a voice. And that's the thing is, we were talking about the data being aggregated from all these different sources and put in one spot. And that's my biggest concern, is that I what's landed on my desk is I've seen like official police reports where one person was searched and then everybody's name came up and it was published in that information. And that's the thing, is I've worked with security details, especially with the projects and companies I've worked with, and I still do, where these are high profile people. They travel in the tinted windows, the really expensive vehicles, and it's more so not just privacy, it's more so security, right? And that's the thing, is I think people want to feel secure in their communities, but it gives an interesting perspective when you can see that one person had probably committed a crime, whether they're guilty of it or not, and then 30 other people show up in that listing as well. And that's the biggest thing is I know people who have had stalkers, people that they need these people out of their lives, but these people just won't go away. And it's when it's a quick Google search, or a quick using things like Kaji, these AI search engines that can just find this information easily. You just provide it the context and they'll give you the information. And that's the thing is, finding this information is one of those things that I think we can agree on, that it should be available to some people, right? The right people. But it's the thing is these people that are looking for this information, they don't play by the rules. There's mostly sometimes international as well. And that's the thing is there is no protection for these people who are being stalked. I had a customer come to me with on vp.net, and it's it was a loaded question. They're like, "Hey, does your technology, I'm in some kind of witness protection. I can't remember what exactly the protection was, where she was required to sign off all social media, not access any emails, and she got her product, because she just, she has this really crazy stalkers coming after her." And she asked me, will this protect me from these things? And it was a question that it was more for law enforcement, right? Because these things, they're not going to protect the data points and stuff if you go sign into social media. Right. So, just my perspective on these things is, I have to see these things because I have a duty to, protect people, and that's our people in our community and our customers. And it's a big thing for me. So it's just one of those things that, I love to hear from you guys and hear your perspectives on this, because, I can't solve, the problems of somebody being stalked, other than, offer privacy and, these levels of security in which people, can be away from, those outlaws, those international criminals that, they don't care. They're gonna take everything from us. Look at like they call the pig butchering, where they scam people out of their money. And that's the thing too, is this information, it pops up. And one of the biggest concerns that I've had in communities is people are using AI to, like, clone people's voices, clone their faces, and pretend to be somebody. And they're like, oh, well, this person has family member. Look, I can see they're in this area now. So they know that they have more information to work with in which they can scam somebody, like call up somebody's loved one and pretend to be them and say, hey, I'm in jail. Can you send me bail money? And they wire the money to some criminal. And these are the things that happen out there. These are real world things. So it's, whatever my opinion is on it, everybody, I think, has an opinion and, or, their own viewpoints. And I think we're all just kind of taking it in day by day when, I see these things in the news where, the biggest hack, the biggest data leak for 1 billion people happen, and it's right at this time point where all the social media platforms are switching to digital, like, give us your ID. It's something to see. It's a sight to see. Jonathan, from your work with residents, how does the presence of
we just lost him, actually?
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah, I'll send him a message, see what happened.
Okay. Yeah, probably internet connections. Okay. We'll move on from that question. We'll go and open it for some open discussion. What does a false positive look like in the real world, and how does it affect trust between residents and law enforcement? Chris, what's your idea with this?
I'm sorry, I was just writing to Jonathan to see if we can get him back here.
I'll ask the question again. What does a false positive look like in the real world, and how does it affect trust between residents and law enforcement? I know this is something that you highly looked into.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big concerns that a lot of people have, that there have been cases of false positives. And I actually would like to ask Skylor something about this. How accurate are those systems as far as, like how often do they get things wrong?
It's so much better today. The technology is so much better today than it was 10, 15 years ago. Again, when I first started utilizing it in a previous life, those OCR reads missed a lot, right? And today's technology is far better, but it still can. Again, usually it's not so much the technology as it is a bad plate, right? It's a muddy plate, or one that's a guy's been towing a trailer and the trailer hitch has been just rubbing the characters off of it, or states have 17 different versions of their license plate, and so sometimes it's just a bad license plate that creates that character misread. The other times it's the officer, right? And it's our fault. We misread and we pull people over occasionally on a wanted. It comes back as a hit for a stolen vehicle or some other flag, and it's because we failed to do our part in validating what the read said. And so it's two parts, right? Sometimes it's a technology issue. It's fewer and far between today because the technology is just that much better. But then there's also the human side. And again, that goes with any technology, that you've got to do your part to verify that it is not an error in a character.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And that's the thing is that's the biggest thing with us is we have to make that a conscious effort to verify our privacy. So we're on the other side of the fence with that. Well, we get it. We understand it.
I think it's important. It's important to note, Chris, in response to that question, Skylor mentioned this earlier or referenced this earlier. A flock hit doesn't create probable cause to arrest someone. That is, it is a data point. It is a piece of evidence that goes with all of the other evidence. But if an officer gets a hit and pulls someone over and takes out their gun and all that, that is, that's not a misuse of flock. That's a misuse of authority. And that, again, is the kind of thing that it happens occasionally, and it happens infrequently enough that when it does happen, or when it's cited, it's always the same instances that are cited because it's rare. But we're always in, as Skylor said, the technology gets better all the time. Cameras get better all the time. But we're always working to make our cameras more accurate to try and take out that human element and that human error rate, without a doubt, because that's a thing. That's a super valid question, and it's something for people to be concerned about.
So when I was looking into it, like I saw that Flock Zone data said that there's a 93% accuracy rate, which sounds good, but like that works out to like around like 1 in 13 cars or something like that there's a mistake on. And, many officers have said in lots of different studies and interviews that, like you said, it is another data point. But if you're an officer and suddenly you get a thing that says that car that just drove by you is a wanted serial killer, you're coming at that call aggressively. Like you have to preserve your own life. And if you believe this person is a murderer, you're not going to come up there like, hey, how's it going, sir? I mean, you're coming guns drawn. Understandably, any human would, if, unless they're not very smart. You know what I mean? But the problem is when that information is inaccurate, and then officers coming up there on edge, they're nervous, their adrenaline's pumping through their system. People make mistakes when adrenaline's rushing through their system. So it does potentially create a really dangerous situation. And if 1 out of 14 cars might have that mistake happen, and there's over 100,000 cameras in America that are doing this, and it's growing every day, then like that's potentially creating situation. It's just a numbers game where it eventually will lead to people dying. Like it's just a numbers game. Like with enough situations, sooner or later something's going to happen. And to your point, that yes, that is more of an issue of the officers' training, no doubt. But like you say, every data point that they're given pushes them in a certain direction. And if they're given information that is only 93% accurate, I don't think that most officers probably are aware that there's a 1 in 14 chance that the information they're given is not accurate. And I think if more officers were aware of that, they possibly would approach that car a lot more cautiously and realize, hey, there's a good chance that this might not be what I think it is. You know what I mean? So I think that there's more education.
I think it is known. And I go back to kind of what I said before cameras existed. We did it based on what you told us on the phone call to dispatch that car looked like. And we pulled you out at gunpoint based on 50% certainty that might be the car, right? So the training aspect that you're talking about is absolutely real. And we do that with our deputies on all the technology we use, but especially on this one, that they have to verify what they're doing before they ever start that stop, and then understand that you don't know who's in the driver's seat, right? If you're looking for the wanted person, that might be the wanted person's vehicle, but it might not be the wanted person in it. So all of those factors play into every one of those stops. But I would take 93%, if that's the valid number, I would take that today over everything we had before this technology existed.
Hey, Chris, one more point. It's a bit of a tangential point that I make about this.
I've got something to say about.
You know what? Please do it.
Absolutely, Jonathan. I just sent a message in our.
I defer to Jonathan because he hasn't had a chance to get a word in edgewise yet.
Yeah. Hi, Jonathan.
I'm hearing a lot about. Hi, I'm hearing a lot about crime here and the benefits of this in a crime aspect, and percentages like 93%. I've got a percentage for you, and that's 99.7. So in Oregon, you've got between 100 and 150,000 arrests a year, and that is for all crimes, including misdemeanors. That only represents 3.5% of the population. The violent crimes are somewhere between 10 and 12,000 arrests per year. That represents 0.3% of the population. Murders are 174 a year, and that doesn't even represent a meaningful number And I could argue that people can go out and do something just based on stupidity and kill themselves. There are cameras on them all the time. So these systems are being designed with this mindset of, you know, we've got to go after the criminals and after the bad guys, but that 99.7% of the people that are law-abiding citizens that care about their privacy, you need to start designing these systems for them. And that's why the laws need to be written so that it's designed for them. It's why everything needs to protect the law-abiding citizen. It's not to protect the criminals or help the police catch the criminals. It's the law-abiding citizens that need this. We demand it. And as you move forward with your company and building these systems, I want you to keep that in mind, because people like me are pushed back. We're pushed back at the Capitol with legislation because they've got a stronger presence of the police force there. They're pushed back when they go to talk about these things in their community because people simply don't know what's going on. There's just pushback everywhere. And so here I am saying, you are in charge of a $7.5 billion company, you and your CEO, who called people like me a domestic terrorist. And I'm saying, use your influence in your company to design the system for people like me, because I've got a whole team of people behind me that agree with me, and they just want to be able to go about their lives and know that they're safe from corporations. They're safe from having their information in the databases where hackers last year, 3,000 major breaches where that information is just out there. And it's proven, you say a lot of stuff is based on conjecture, but articles proven flock systems are not secure. There are some where you can push buttons and gain admin access at the camera level. There's no end-to-end encryption. You don't have systems in place to where you, well, there is end-to-end encryption, just not the kind we would like. You don't have systems in place that would stop somebody in Medford, in the police force, from emailing ICE the information they obtain from Flock. And in a democratic state, we have sanctuary laws where we're not supposed to be helping ICE. So these systems, even though the democratic policy states this should not be done, these systems aren't designed to protect it from being abused. I'm sorry, I sat here for an hour patiently.
It's okay.
And I would have.
It's perfectly fine, Jonathan.
Would have had this not come out like
building up. I don't blame you at all.
Amazing points.
Could I
Amazing.
respond to a couple of those things, guys?
Before it's a lot of the people in the privacy community, like I said, they have their viewpoints and their perspectives on these things, and that's why it's so important to have a voice. You know, and it extends to everybody. That you know, in the communities we live in, it's these are things that are taken very, very, very seriously, and it's more serious from the people that, you know, they respect their privacy and anonymity, and it's taken very seriously from the people that feel like they don't have a voice. And that's, I think, having a voice is most important. Yeah, if you can absolutely answer on some of those things, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll hit all of them because there was a lot in there, but I bet we'll come back to some of it. But the first thing, Jonathan, that you know, I keyed to, I hear your passion. I hear you talking about 99.7% of people. I'll take your word for it that are not involved in any crime and have no intention ever of being involved in a crime. That correlates really closely to the percentage of the images that Flock takes that are deleted, never having been looked at by a single human being. And the reason that correlates so closely is those are images of cars of people who are not involved in crime. And so no officer has any reason ever to query their license plate. So I think that's actually pretty telling. Again, I hear your passion. And I would say, I'll go back to what I said in the intro. I joined this company in part because I'm fascinated by this trade-off, and I am passionate about privacy. And the lawyers who work for me on my team, they are passionate about privacy. A number of them come from the hard political left and never thought they would work for a company like Flock, but they believe that what we're doing is exactly what you're talking about, designing the system to protect people, not just from crime, but also from abuse. And so, you know, I hear you. I agree with you. And my passion doesn't come out in the same way as yours does, but I believe I am doing what you are saying. I believe we are doing what you are saying. And I bet you if you and I sat for a while and talked about this stuff, as we do quite frequently with privacy activists across the country, you would find, as we often find, we agree on more than we disagree on. And unless you get to the point where, you just believe that this technology ought not to exist, and that's an agree to disagree, discussion, and that's fine. That's why, again, when communities decide they don't want it, that's the right decision for that community at that point in time. I will say on the flock systems are not secure. That is not correct. I know what you're referring to. You're referring to a YouTube video where a guy got a camera. He got that off of eBay. It had never been connected to our system and therefore had never gotten a security update. Literally didn't have any security features installed, and he was able to access that camera. And he made a YouTube video making it look like he had done something fantastically innovative, and he hadn't. But that's fine. He got a lot of clicks. But if you go to our website, you can go to our trust center. You can see of all of our certifications. We have very high security standards for our system, which has never been breached. Breaking into a piece of hardware that's not connected to the network is not the same thing as accessing Flock's data, which is very secure and can probably always be made more secure. You all from vp.net, I'm sure you would tell me there is no system that is perfectly secure, nor will there ever be, because the bad guys are always getting more aggressive and getting more tools. And so we're always working to make the system more secure. But the notion that is out there that Flock is not a secure system is false. And then finally, Jonathan, with regard to ICE access, this is one of those areas where we have made changes to our system based on exactly what you were talking about. So Oregon is a sanctuary state. And so as of last year, there are search filters in Flock so that if someone tries to conduct a search on Oregon's cameras for immigration-related violations, that search literally won't go through. So even if a community makes a mistake and shares with an agency that is hitting them with immigration searches, those individual searches will not go through. And we made those changes in consultation with privacy advocates who brought that issue to us exactly the way you just did, with quite a lot of heat. And they were right. That again, it falls into the category of I agree with you. If there is a jurisdiction that has made the decision not to allow certain things, we engineer that into our system, not to make it perfect, because there is no system that is perfect, but to make it as easy as possible for the officers who are using those systems to comply with the laws and regulations, and even just community norms that apply to them.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you for replying. I think that answers a lot of it from, a lot of questions that needed addressed. Let's open it up for the questions and answers. I know you guys are limited on time, and we want to roll through things. If anybody from the that's viewing, if you have any questions for us, just go ahead and type capital Q : and then ask your question. And just keep it cordial. Ask any question that you want. Feel free. Chris, I know we have some more questions, but Nathan, you had a question that you'd like to ask. You haven't spoken much. What's your take?
Yeah, I just had a question for the Sheriff Skylor here. Is there any fear that police officers become too dependent on AI systems such as Flock and lose focus on, the standard regular police work? And, the AI obviously requires proper input from your end from real police work. And do you have any personal recommendations for guardrails that could be implemented? And mistakes or things that you've seen in the past that could be improved?
Well, as y'all know better than most, right? Technology is advancing every day in all aspects of life. Again, when I started in this job in law enforcement in the early 90s, there were no in-car computers. There were no in-car cameras. There were no body cameras. There were no cell phones. Right? We had a pager, if people remember that back that far. So today's law enforcement officer is a walking computer, right? The body camera, even the taser, if they're carrying a taser, has some technology parts to it, potentially, depending on which version they're using. The mobile radio, the cell phone, all of that technology they use every day in conjunction with their job. So they have to learn a different way. And of course, kids today grow up different than we did with technology as a whole. So I don't think technology becomes necessarily a crutch, but you do have to be careful with it, because we've talked about that before. I did a lot with facial recognition over the last few years. And one of the things with facial recognition technology was this idea that the technology falsely identified people that were arrested. And that was completely false. Every case that's out there, it was a failure of investigation. It was a failure of the human to do the work. So the technology gave the lead, and instead of following that lead out and following your normal investigative processes, you took what the computer spit out and you went and arrested somebody. The technology did exactly what it was supposed to do. When we talk about ALPR technology, it's the same thing. Like we talked about before with the misreads. Most of the time, right, it's a human error, especially today with the way technology is. So that training of, hey, you get the alert, you got to take that extra step to verify the information. Is that alert correct with what you see with your own eyes? And then you go into that knowing that it still may not be the right person, because that's just normal law enforcement work. So yeah, but guardrails, again, have to be beyond just what the technology provider gives you. To be a professional, for professional law enforcement, you've got to take that extra step in even just doing privacy impact statements, right? So that your constituents, the public that you're serving, understands what technology you have, what you do with it, and what you don't do with it, so that it's not necessarily, a black box somewhere. There are things we can't talk about in great detail. Back when I was a state narcotics agent in the 90s, I forget what the name of the show was, but on A&E there was this show, and it was always these New York detectives, and they would get up and say, okay, well, this looks like a pager, but it's really a microphone, and we're going to go buy some dope. And it's like, dude, we still use that technology. Stop saying that. You're going to get somebody hurt, right? And so it's great to get in here and talk from the law enforcement side about what we do with technology, but there's still things we can't really get great detail in. And sometimes I think that's where some of this misconceptions come into, because we can't talk about things that the crooks would use against us.
Absolutely. That's how do you think about that, Nathan?
Yeah, I think that was, a great answer. It was great to hear that from you, Sheriff Hearn, and I appreciate the perspective.
Thank you so much. And we have some questions that we can get answers for if we want to pull these up. The thing is, from the reliance and here's what's going on behind the scenes, right? I've seen with the level of where AI is at, and the level of dependence on these tools are just going to be moving forward. It's looking as if these tools are going to take over a lot of tasks. They're going to take over a lot of people's jobs. We're going to be reliant on them. We already are. And technology moves faster than legislation. It moves faster than law. It moves faster than community. It moves. The things I've seen, and that's the thing, is like I don't play with AI too much. I'm more of the, I respect the human. creativity, creative expression, these types of things, value the human. I'm not a data point and algorithm. I'm a human being, that type of stuff. But, behind the scenes, I'm a chief operating officer of a tech company here, and the technology that we have is some of the most advanced stuff that I think humanity will ever see. And as these things are implemented into, government, into, companies, into organizations, or even just used by, then hacker down the road. It's concerning is all I can say. The level of where technology is at is almost alien compared to, when I grew up in the 90s. I never would have predicted that these tools that are at our hands, at our fingertips, are at this level. There's ChatGPT, there's these things that are out there that people have access to. Then there's the really advanced stuff that, we have, and it's scary, and it's, seeing how these tools work and they make decisions for us. I think that's the biggest concern, is that a lot of these tools make decisions for people, and that's going to be moving into the reliance side on these things. Is people are, one thing I wish people would do in the world more is think more for themselves, right? Think about it, right? And that's the reliance on these tools, is they're thinking for us is the biggest concern. We have a question here from Zora Crawfish. Dan from Flock, you say it's up to the communities. So then why are you sending your company reps into our city council and state legislature to push back on what communities want?
Yeah, that one's been sitting on my screen for a while. I was hoping you'd give me the opportunity to hit that one. Zora, this is what I was talking about earlier. We absolutely believe it's up to communities. That's self-evident. We just want communities to make their decisions based on full information. And so, of course, we show up at state legislatures, and of course, we show up at city councils when these conversations happen, and we ask that we be heard out. And often we are. In some situations, unfortunately, we live in a world now where shouting people down is a thing on both sides, and sometimes our reps get shouted down. We think that's unfortunate. We think that does a disservice to the community, but we're very happy to stand in front of the most hostile critics and skeptics of our technology and answer questions. And then the democratic process works the way it's supposed to work. It doesn't work if people don't have full information and they only have one side. So that's why we show up. It's not to try and take away the community's right to make a decision. It's to make sure that that decision, that debate, and that ultimate decision that comes from it is an informed one.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, absolutely. I want to make decisions based on, being informed. And I think that's what we can ask of anybody, is that, if they come to a conclusion on something, be informed with all of the facts. And I think that's the most important thing. We have a question here from Allie Ames. Question, Chief Deputy Hearn, in the interest of full transparency, could you share your professional history with Clearview AI and K&L Gates before joining the Chambers County Sheriff's Office?
Absolutely. So I think we talked about beforehand. I spent 26 years with the state police. That was my main law enforcement career here in Texas. I retired in 2020, and K&L Gates offered me a role as a government affairs advisor out of their Austin office. And I did public affairs, government contracting, and legislative work for the Sheriff's Association, who I'm here representing today, by the way. And then Clearview AI was a client of mine when I was working for K&L Gates. And then Clearview asked if I would actually go in-house with them and be their director of government affairs for the country. And I did that for a while and went doing government affairs, again, public policy work across the country for Clearview. Again, talking about, much like we are today, misconceptions about technology and when mistakes happen, where the mistake is. It's the human, not the technology most of the time, and how to not be either all or nothing. Talk about guardrails and policy and parameters and how we can use technology appropriately, but still have those safeguards for privacy.
Thank you for your answer. We have a question from Mrs. CMS here. It just went away. Let's get your take on okay, so connect. Let's get your take on things, Suzy. We haven't heard from you at all. With everything said and with all the information that's out there, you know, we see things, and actually hearing from, you know, these gentlemen has been enlightening, right? It gives me the perspectives in which, you know, I asked for before. What's your take on this?
Oh, you know, I do agree so much with you know, the fact that we all agree on so much about this. I love that we touched on that subject, because that is the most important way to communicate and to leave an open platform for everyone to hear each other, not just to you know, because we all have these views. I have the views of wanting privacy, as John has described. I like the views of Skylor expressing that it is a person problem, it is an individual problem, that who chooses to abuse the system and who doesn't. That is a big important thing that we need to train our police to, you know, not that they don't try, but because I believe it's one of the hardest jobs out there, and I can't imagine doing it myself. So if it's something I can't do myself, I can't knock it so bad, you know, and it's something that's so hard to understand, that it is an individual thing in the moment when you're in a stressful, confrontational situation, even, you know, it's hard to make that discernment. And I appreciate the amount of discernment that I've seen from a lot of police that I've encountered, because I'm going to tell a tiny little story about my you know, feeling violated in my privacy, where, you know, I bought a car. My dad actually got this car with me when I was like in my early 20s, and he registered it to his address and his license, and he had just bought the house. So we just moved and all these things. Just to give that preface is important. Uh, so I'm driving around, and I'm in LA, you know, Los Angeles, and LA's finest pulls me over, and just to kind of a BS pull over, like I just wanted to check out who you are and then let me go. Just looked at my ID and let me go. And I'm like, well, that was weird. And then later that year, in the course of a year, I'm pulled over 9 times. It's because of what actually Skylor had mentioned, the license plate tagging system that they have. It was creating a situation where somebody who used to live in the house that my dad bought was extremely wanted. I had no idea who this person was, never heard of them. Even by the 9th time, I'm like, can you please stop pulling me over? I'm not doing anything wrong. And I've never been arrested in my life still. And I'm, you know, I was feeling very violated. I said, I'm not doing anything wrong. But I was very kind, and I do appreciate the discernment and discretion that they understood I wasn't doing anything wrong, but they had to check. But why did they have to keep checking the same car, first off? But if they figured out that it wasn't involved. But I just didn't like the violation of my privacy in that way, because, you know, it was sometimes it would be if my boyfriend at the time was being sitting in the car with me, so they wanted to see who he was, you know, and that makes up perfect sense in their point of view. But from my point of view, I'm terrified. I you know, even one of them made me cry once, just asking me questions. I'm a wimp like that. And I just don't, you know, that's where I understand. That's where I appreciate what John is saying, where I want to be protected from things like this. And it also ties into what I believe Shane and Chris were telling a story about that lady who her car was tagged in a certain area. There was a robbery, and they thought it was her, right? So and you know, what I love is that I agree with all of you in this, and that we can actually, it's a privilege to have this discussion.
It is a
So
privilege, and
yeah,
that story you were mentioning with the 2 women in the car, they got pulled out at gunpoint and laid down on the
yeah,
ground with you know, face down, and
that
you know,
too. There
as
was both. There was 2 stories. Yeah.
as Deputy Hearn there said, those things, they happen. Before they would get phone calls and they white cars, so they're pulling over white cars and stuff, and those things happen. But that's the scariest thing, especially with these data points. I'm not a data point. I'm a human being. And that's my take on it. Is the AIs make this? They're going to be making decisions for us, and this is the technology that we're moving forward with in life as a society, right? And that's what's scariest the most is that they make a decision to flag a certain thing, and then all of a sudden, it's scary enough when one cop car pulls you over, right? And it's even scarier when 8 more cop cars pull up behind him. So it's one of those things. Is the AI assisting in that? And I'm telling you what, like even if you don't get arrested, you still got laid down on the cement with guns pointed at you and stuff. It's traumatizing. It's not just a story to tell at the bar. That's some real world stuff. You know what I'm saying? You come away with some damage from that. And I think that's the scariest thing too, is like, we're not criminals. I don't think these people are domestic terrorists. Some of the people that I speak to about privacy and with your story, Suzy, is, you guys are the most kind people in the world. And, that's the thing is like, I don't ask that question. Why do bad things happen to good people? Like it's a really, to answer that is really loaded. So we're going to be moving into an intermission here soon, but we have more questions, and thank you so much for sharing with us, Suzy. Kai Fireside Chats has a question for the mods. How did you choose your panelists? Chris, can you answer that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been planning this stream for about a month, and the first guest right from the start was Jonathan. He was always going to be here, and then we had a member of an activist organization that was going to join, and then as of like 3 days ago, multiple other ones had written to me and wanted to join as well, and there was a total of I think like 10 or 11 different guests that were supposed to come on the show, and one by one they just started dropping off randomly in the last few days. As far as Dan, I wrote to Flock, kind of as a Hail Mary. I didn't think that they would respond to me, or if they did, that they would be interested in coming on the show. And much to my delight, they responded, and we had a call, and they just agreed to come on, which I really really appreciate. And I at the time I realized suddenly there was at one point I think there was like 7 or 8 privacy advocates, activists, and Dan, and I'm like, well, this is really kind of a dog pile right now, and because this is a law enforcement issue, I think that the perspective of law enforcement, the people who actually use the technology, is a really important puzzle piece here for everybody to really understand all sides of things. And I wrote to several people, but honestly, Hearn was one of the people that I was really hoping would write to me, specifically because he does have connections to the facial recognition and AI industry, and because he's somebody who truly, truly believes in the technology. You know what I mean? To have somebody here to really speak on its use, I wanted somebody who actually used it many times and believes in it. And he's also, been in law enforcement for several decades. And, he's somebody, he's been very modest here, but I mean, he won an FBI award for rescuing missing children. So, this is an American hero here who's done a very long career, regardless of how whether you agree with his feelings on surveillance or Flock or anything like that. This is a man who has saved many lives and helped a lot of people over the years. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I was really glad that he agreed to come on. So I chose these panelists because I wanted to get very, very different, unique perspectives here, so everybody can kind of understand where we're all coming from. Because we live in this world where everything that we see is chosen by algorithms. And as a privacy activist, I will only see news stories that are against Flock. And somebody who, for example, is super pro law enforcement might only see stories that are positive about Flock. So none of us are really operating with a full set of understanding of all the sides of the story. So I think it's important for us to be able to hear the different perspectives from everybody, so we can all make up our own opinions and really understand, the use cases for it, and also the risks and the dangers, and both the positive and negative effects on the community. So that's why I chose everybody to be here, and I thought that was a really good question. So thank you.
And that's the thing too, is I'm coming into all this. I do technology all day, every day. My discussions are about technology, high level stuff. When I open my eyes in the very morning, and Suzy can vouch for this, my brain is instantly in engineering mode. I can't turn it off. So to get perspectives and to hear, these sides is an important thing. And I come from a perspective, the way I value people may not be the way these data points and systems value people, right? They're looking at them for a criminal aspect. I'm looking for the good in the world, right? It's a wicked world. Mrs. CMS asked, will Flock inadvertently take photos of pedestrians or bicyclists? Does a bicycle count as a vehicle?
No. Well, I don't know what inadvertently means. If a car is going by and the camera takes a picture of the car and there's a bicycle in the frame, then the bicycle's in the photograph, but the system is not looking at the bicycle. These are, as we've discussed, these are public streets that these cameras are taking pictures on. So yes, they will sometimes capture in the background of an image something that is not a vehicle. But again, that's an image of somebody on a public thoroughfare, and the system doesn't see that. It doesn't read that. It's not identifying that. Certainly not identifying the individual. Not capable of identifying the individual.
Thank you for that. And let's move forward. We're going to head over to an intermission, but before we do, I just want to say thank you so much to Skylor for joining us. Let's see, where's the? Can't find it in my document here. Skylor, do you have anything more to say or any questions for us by chance?
No, not really. Again, as everybody else has said, right? It's great to have these conversations, because there are places that I've been in other fields where people don't even want to have the conversation. They don't want to hear both sides of an issue and try to come to good public policy decisions. And good public policy may look like one thing in a red state and another thing in a blue state. But if you can come to some decision that benefits public safety and benefits privacy, and it may look different in different places, it is far better for both sides than to just say, absolutely not. We're not going to use this because somebody could abuse it. Right. And I think as technology advances, everything we're talking about with AI, these are the conversations we're going to have to keep having about different things. We've had these conversations in public safety about DNA and fingerprints and iris and retinal scans and all of these biometric things and where they can be found and where they can be exploited. So it's great to have a forum where you can kind of try to work through and come to good middle ground.
And that's the thing. It's all about balance, right? And that's why we start to show with left, right. It's all the same to us, and it's not the same, right? It's different. It's different everywhere. And to have these open forums, discussion are the most important things. It's a neutral ground for us to have a voice. So since that, thank you so much, Chief Hearn. You're a very busy man. You're not going to be able to join us for the second half of the show. I know you got meetings and everything. So thank you so much for joining us today. You gave us some real world perspectives, and that's what I'm about, is just keeping it real, right? And I think that's something you provided very well. So you put your life on the line. You handle some of the world's craziest things, and just thank you from all of us. And Mrs. CMS says thank you so much as well.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys. We're going to head into intermission, and we will see you soon.
T-minus 3 minutes. T-minus 2 minutes.
Showing ads for the things that you don't really need. They want all the data, they want your ID, but I've got some news that just won't work for me. So I encrypt the connection and cover my tracks. We get to the truth and we stick to the facts. We build a safe place where the speech is always free, where cypherpunks go to just hide and speak. Hide and speak, we stay in the shadows and make some noise. Hide and speak, digital freedom, yeah, that is our choice. Hide and speak, privacy doesn't mean not having a you wanna share is
T-minus 1 minute.
Look, the world is exposed, yeah, the walls are thin. Everybody posting every place that they've been. Trading privacy for likes, that's a heavy cost. In the ocean of data, the person gets lost. So we flip the switch, yeah, we go underground. Moving through the silence without making a sound. Not hiding because you are doing something wrong. Just defending your rights before they are gone. The room is secure, so let the session start. Speak from the brain or speak from the heart. Tell us your story, we unlock the doors. We invite the guests,
T-minus 30 seconds.
you can keep the mask on, keep it low key. Privacy is priceless, but opinions are free. We amplify the voices that they try to call weak. Welcome to the stream, time to hide and speak. Hide and speak, we stay in the shadows and make some noise. Hide and speak, digital freedom, yeah, it's our choice.
10, 9,
Hide and speak, privacy doesn't mean
7,
having a voice.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hide and speak.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dan Haley. Just getting perspectives on all this is a big thing for everybody. Like coming from the privacy side, we see comments like such as from Larry Ellison that maybe AI will keep us all in line. And that's the thing is like we see comments like this. From the world's billionaires, right? And then we see Elon Musk's take on things with Grok integrating its AI into all government systems, and having access to classified, unclassified information. So these are things that are like, it's not just about concern, it's about these things are actually happening. So from an observer point of view, it's like, wow, it's a lot to take in. It really is. With Flock and within our communities, Jonathan, he's rebooting. He's having issues with the camera in the system there, so he'll be rejoining us shortly. But I've been speaking a lot with gentlemen that they take this very seriously. It's I mean, we look at it, it's 1984 out there, right? It's just how it is, and I think we can all kind of agree with that. Is that there's been arguments that there's no such thing as privacy, and that's the thing is yeah, there is. Like if I want to hang out with Suzy and go somewhere where it's just us, I think that's well within our right. And I think as human beings, that's something that why a lot of people move out to the jungle, move out to the woods, and it's not just the fear of surveillance and stuff. I mean, what are they going to catch you doing if you're not doing anything wrong? But that's the thing is some people aren't doing anything wrong, and then they get caught up, and then the people start doing wrong things with that information and to these people. And I see this every day. It scares me. Honestly, I live in fear most days, and I try to keep it cool. But if people knew the half of like what's out there and what's actually happening, and who do you trust and who do you don't trust, and that's the thing is like, and I work with zero trust technology, so it's my viewpoints can be I would say challenging to some, but for some, I just try to remain neutral with these things. So Nathan, Chris, Dan, and Suzy, let's open this up for some discussion here. Like, let's talk about this like we're a community. You know what I'm saying? Like people coming together in a big room and discussing these things like normal people. Because with Jonathan, he goes to the town hall meetings, the city council meetings. They're talking politics. I go to one of these places and it's everybody's arguing. Why is everybody arguing and stuff? It's like, oh, cameras are pointed at me. Oh, geez, like not that again. You can't go to any government building, you can't go to the library without a camera being pointed at you and stuff. But I'm seeing things now where like coffee shops are using these AI systems to scan everything and put little boxes around people, see how long their customers are there. and find the efficiency of their workers and stuff. And that's the thing is like these cameras are going to find my efficiency. Are they going to find my efficiency in like, you know, the real world? Like what is efficient out there? You know, what makes me a person? And I think that's what it comes down to is identity, right? We have fingerprinting technologies. You know, Flock does fingerprinting for the vehicles. You know, there's ad companies that do fingerprinting for our browsers. And that's the thing is what is our real identity? And it really, for me, and this is just my opinion, it's what we stand for and what we're about and how we go about it. That's you as a person, right? It's our actions. And so with my little rant here, what's your guys' take on AI and where it's moving to? Like, what are we looking at in the next 10 years? Because I can't even imagine 1 year out, let alone 10 years. What's it looking like with Flock, Dan? What's a perfect like a good world for you?
Well, gosh, I hear you. You said something earlier, you know, couldn't have imagined the way technology would evolve. And I'm always knocked out by how much science fiction accurately predicts. Like people did imagine a lot of this stuff. They put it on TV and in the movies and holy cow, here it is. But look, we're going to keep building better technology for communities to use to keep themselves safe. And as that technology gets more and more robust, we will participate in the public conversations about what guardrails need to exist. So one of the, I said, you know, we interact quite a lot with the privacy activist community. One of the venues in which we interact is in state legislatures when we're talking about evolving regulation of these technologies, which, by the way, like most purveyors of cutting edge technology, we are very much in favor of regulation of our technology. We would just prefer that it be uniform and not different in every state, because that makes it very, very difficult, you know, to enable users to be compliant. But gosh, you know, there need to be guardrails, and we don't want to be the only ones building them. It would be good if you know, there were community, meaning community, maybe large C community consensus on what are the limits, what are people willing to countenance in their lives, and what are the guardrails, what's the trade-off. One of the things that I think is lost often in this conversation, you know, people will say, you know, you talk about crime and that's fear mongering. And that is very easy to say if you live in a life without crime, without the impact of crime. But like most things in this country, the impact of crime hits disproportionately in communities that are historically disadvantaged and marginalized. And one of the things that we find most interesting about this debate, you know, I won't attribute this in part because I can't remember his name, but there was a very interesting city council meeting where the chief of police, who was a man of color and came from a disadvantaged background, looked at the people protesting the technology and said, you know, I don't know much about you, but I get the sense from your questions that you come from a different place than I do. And the place I come from, there is a tremendous need for greater public safety. And that is not an imposition of government. It's a core obligation of government. And we mostly fall down in marginalized communities. So, you know, I went kind of far afield, Shane, from your question, but yeah, I think the most important thing is to keep having this conversation. Chris, you said there were activist groups lined up to join this. I'm bummed that it wasn't a dog pile. I would have been happy to participate with 7 or 8 different activists. It's, you know, that's we all need to hear perspectives.
I think with these activists as well, they're just getting their grasp on things. Like it's how do you navigate this, right? And it's something that, like, you know, for some people's perspectives, it's like, man, they're taking on the man, you know, like the eyes in the sky watching us all. What do we do? Like, and that's the thing is like, what can we do is the real question. And I think Jonathan, if he's back or not,
He keeps flashing in and out.
Yeah, I just saw him there.
He's having some network trouble.
Okay. And that's the thing is a lot of the questions I have for Jonathan is what can we do? How can I go be a part of my community and have my voice heard in the community, and will it even be heard? And that's the thing is, with this, you have to get like 1,000 signatures before they'll even like listen to you. So I have to go knock on door to door and be like, hey man, the man's watching you. What do you think on this? And I don't know how to go about this in my community and stuff. And that's the thing is the cameras can watch me skip down the road to the city hall meeting and stuff with a notepad in my hand. But that's the thing is I don't know how to go about it. I don't know, from sitting back from an observer point of view, seeing these things in our communities. And I mean, seeing what's on the news, whether it's Reddit or these other platforms, it's, people are rioting in the streets, like they're up in hands and like it's getting crazy out there. That's the best thing I can say about it. It's getting pretty wild is what I'm saying. And that's the thing is like the more AI takes these jobs away, the more things transition with the layoffs and people start going hungry, they're going to be out there in the streets. They're going to be pretty mad. Crime's probably going to go up. So my questions and concerns, I'm just going to keep them to myself, but it's like, you got a bunch of angry people out there and mob mentality. It's what is the surveillance going to do? It's just going to be like what the Hunger Games out there here in a minute. So my perspective on these things is it can be a little, I want to say childish at times, but I try to add that comedic flavor to it. But there's no comedy with that stuff. They're standing on, like we drive by to the grocery store and they're standing on the side of the road holding signs. And not just about Flock, it's or I haven't seen it with Flock, but with the No Kings stuff, with the ICE and the DHS, whatever our opinions on these things, left, right, it doesn't matter. But people are out there, they're being heard, and that's the thing is they're being heard, but not in the city hall sense as well. So I see it from all angles, and I'm just trying to get a grasp on it myself. So these other aspects of it. People they're just trying to get their grasp on it. The activists with they're trying to navigate these things as well and do that in a professional manner. And I think that's the best way to go about it, is a professional manner. But it's kind of hard to have a professional manner with it. Even when AI came out with ChatGPT, like it took over like 90% of what it is that I do as a chief, right? And that's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of like getting meetings going. It's a lot of figuring out problems so that I can find solutions for these problems. But luckily, when I look over things like infrastructure and data security and information security, it keeps me in a realm of my own, because these people, they don't care about information security out there when they're holding a sign. Like some of them are probably going to be holding baseball bats soon, in my opinion. So it's scary. We live in a scary world. But to go about this and like how I can be a part of this in my community has been something that everybody's been asking me, and has these questions for Jonathan. Jonathan, like, what's the process like on and what are we looking at for the cities out there and the counties out there and the states out there that don't want Flock in their communities? Like, what's the process to navigate this?
So I'm no expert, but I can tell you what I have gone through. And I think I've already told you, but for those who are just tuning in, my backstory, I have had no involvement in any kind of cities or state government since until December 9th of last year. So about 2.5 months now. So the first step in the process is learn how your city council works, and either tune in and watch the meetings online, or actually go to city council. And if you feel like you need to make a public comment about something, is it possible for me to share my screen here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chris can do that, right?
Yeah. Is there an option there on your screen?
And Dan, we know you have other obligations to attend to as well. So just let us know at any time, and make that work.
So I sent Chris some files I put together for people that are in other states other than Oregon. Can you guys see this portal link here? File? Like, is my screen being shared correctly?
No, it's not sharing right now.
Yeah?
Nope.
Okay, then then I'll just walk you through the process vocally. The first step is figure out the website for your legislation. And then once you learn that, mark your calendar for when the legislative session happens. Like for Oregon, it was, I think, right around February 4th, February 6th that happened. And it's a short session. So it is, it ends in March 6th, I believe. Then get familiar with who your state representatives are and who your state senators are. And you'll have to look up, each state will have a spot that lists all the representatives or senators. And then they'll have access to a district map where you can see that. I think you can even type in your address and it'll tell you who your representatives are. And then I would say go in and browse the committees and find out what they do in each committee. Find out what bills are up. There's only a couple out of all of them that really interested me. One was related to data sharing, and the other one was the ALPR legislation. And if there's something you find that you care about, and here's the important thing, I believe. So I mentioned earlier that Oregon has a population of 4.2 million people. On the data sharing bill, only 87 people commented on that. On the ALPR bill, only 37 people commented on that. And when I say commented, I don't mean publicly going and testifying. I mean submitting written testimony through the legislative website. That way it becomes part of the public record. And so I don't know for sure if the senators and representatives are actually viewing this testimony, but I do know that their staff is. And the staff are the people that put the presentations together or packets that the senators and representatives will look at when they're making the decisions concerning the bills that they're going to be voting on. In the same spot where you can submit written testimony, there's a spot where you can actually, if you're not like me and far away from the Capitol, you can actually show up at the Capitol and register to testify if you feel really strongly about a bill. And then, so you could do that if you wanted to. And other than that, what I've personally done is try to connect with like-minded people, and then, so I reached out to the ACLU and the Institute for Justice just for guidance, and I honestly I didn't get anywhere with that at first until because I reached out before anything was in like before any bills were being voted on. So I think I reached out too soon. But what I did that wasn't too soon was I went to town halls where I met my representatives and senator. I went to a town hall that was national and tried to meet my, I think it was Senator Wyden, but that didn't work out. I just ended up emailing him. But I ended up finding out which committee the bill is in and contacted all the staff and the senator that was, I don't know what the term is, not authored the bill. You know, honestly, I think I've only watched one interview with Dan, but I watched it late last night, and he had mentioned he had done lobbying, and they have a better take than I would on how the system works, because I don't know. And I feel like I'm just shouting into the void most of the time because I don't get replies on emails. With the representatives, I did at the local level, but the state level, there's no replies there. But I understand these people are extremely busy with trying to cram a bunch of bills into a short time frame. And I guess one last thing I'll mention before you guys can change the subject is on one of Dr. John Padfield's, I think he calls them office hours, where he's got like an open Q&A session on YouTube. I went there after I saw him on you guys' channel, And I asked a question about how to interact with state legislation, and he mentioned that most people run for this because they are passionate about one or two things, and then they're presented with all these bills over and over that they may not be passionate about. And so they rely on the public's information to sway their opinion. And if there's only 37 or 87 people out of 4.2 million, that opinion can be swayed fairly easily until you factor in lobbyists. And I think because they always have a presence at the Capitol, their voice is heard much louder. So in order for the average people to have their voice heard, it's not going to be one or two written testimonies or 37. You've got to have hundreds. So it has to be a little bit of a combined effort if you want your voice heard. And I think that's all that people want, is their voice to be heard. And if you are secure in the fact that you know your voice has been heard, and the people that have heard your voice and your point of view, they make the decision after that fact, then there's not much more you can do, but at least you can feel confident in the fact that you gave it your best. That old college try.
And that's all we can do, is to, if you just do your best in life, you can't nobody fault you, right? And that's how we go about it. Allie Ames here has a question for you, Dan. How does the system differentiate between the rear of the vehicle and the rest of the car without capturing the entire car's data to do so? And is that extra metadata anonymized for training? Like, is this like information being used for other purposes?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, guys.
Okay, let me see if I can break
the camera
that down.
takes a picture of the vehicle from the rear. So I'm sorry if that was interpreted as it's confining itself to like that panel of the car. It's not. It's just that's the car passes, and then it takes. So if the car is going in reverse, I guess it would take a picture of the front. So I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I think she's referring to, you mentioned that it can capture like bumper stickers and things like that. And bumper stickers could tell you people's political affiliations, they could tell you their gender identity, religion. There's so many things that people will advertise on their bumper, which could potentially be used to track certain types of individuals. So I think what they're asking is, when that data is captured by the system, is that data anonymized, or is that's all searchable as well? And
yeah, that is not how the system works. So the system doesn't know what the bumper sticker says or care. It just knows there's a bumper sticker in a certain part of the automobile. Now, if somebody were to use it for the purposes that you're positing, there would be a record of that in the log, and that presumably would be sanctionable, because that's not it's not a criminal offense to have a political perspective. But I hear what you're asking. That is one of those, could it be used to do the following, fill in the blank? And the answer is yes. But if it were, that would be an abuse of the system. It would be logged, and presumably that would end up on the very short list of abuses that people talk about, because the person would be found and sanctioned for that.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly.
I
Good.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I mean, good. Like, if somebody has like
appreciate
a
that.
anti-anything sticker on their car, and it's somebody go like, oh, I want to type in anti-Trump and find out who these people are.
Yeah,
I think that was a concern that we had, is like, like they're gonna, start searching stuff for like who's wearing a blue hat, that type of stuff.
yeah.
And that scares me. That absolutely scares me. We have another question here from.
I had
go
a
ahead.
quick question here for him too. I was wondering, like, what is the process for flagging like the license plates in the system? And like, who decides, or what evidence is used to certify that like these flags is accurate? Like, who is it? You only get your information from police departments or whatever government agencies or ring cameras or whatever. And like, what guardrails are in place to ensure this system can't be abused by like any one human.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm sorry if I'm not answering the question you're asking, but again, that's the logs. So if an officer has reason to believe a vehicle has been used in commission of crime, they enter that license plate, and then there's a flag if that car goes by a camera. But that search, that entering of that license plate, that creating of that search is logged, and there's a reason entered in the reason field that the officer is searching for that vehicle in connection with a specific crime. So it can't be just, I just want to find Dan's, vehicle this evening, see what Dan's up to. That is the kind of thing that Skylor was talking about, where occasionally you will have, a cop misuse the system to figure out, where their ex is or whatever. And that shows up in the log, and that person gets fired and sometimes prosecuted for doing that.
Thanks for that answer. And
Yep, thank you.
we have a bunch of questions rolling in now too. It's hard to.
Yeah, I want to say out loud what I said in the chat. I've got to bail at 6:20 to go be at a thing for my daughter tonight. So I don't want people to think that I'm jumping out because I'm getting hit with questions. I like questions.
Yeah. No, it's answers.
I was going to
ask you a question.
I'm just going to hop in for a
Dan.
second. Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, Dan actually was supposed to have a hard stop at 6 p.m. and he's graciously extended this to give us a few more minutes just so he could answer some of your questions. So I don't want you to think he's running away.
Real chill. And Jonathan, if you have a question, go for it.
Yeah. So Flock told Ron Wyden back in July that they'd implement privacy filters that the company had already adopted in Illinois to prevent out-of-state police searches related to abortion or immigration. How did Flock expect to fulfill that promise when all they have to go on is the reason field provided by officers? Reason is often just variations of the word investigation or other vague descriptions. Does Flock actually know why every search is being run? Can they actually guarantee that they can block these searches if an officer doesn't explicitly state a blacklisted word in the search reason?
So, Jonathan, thank you for asking that. That's we've talked about both elements of that question. So the filters have been implemented, and that is in direct response to concerns raised by Senator Wyden and others, including the ACLU, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, who doesn't like us at all, but they give us great inputs. And the search reason, as already noted, was freeform. So an officer could, most officers would enter a legitimate text description of why they were conducting the search, but some would enter investigation, or unfortunately, some would even enter CUZ, cuz. And that was brought to our attention by privacy advocates. And so we changed that into a drop down where they have to select from hundreds of available what's called NIBRS codes. I don't genuinely know what it's an acronym, NIBRS, I think. And this is a classification system for offenses, and it's uniform across the country. And so there's a number of offense types that are correlated to immigration searches, and those searches can't go through in Oregon because it is a sanctuary state where it's not legal to share information with federal law enforcement for purposes of enforcement of immigration laws. So those searches, they literally don't go through. It's like they didn't happen if they're attempted. And again, that was in response to inputs we got from privacy activists and advocates. Jonathan, I've been wanting to get an opportunity to address one more point that you made earlier that I think is important, because I think it explains some of the energy in your voice. You said that Flock's CEO called you a domestic terrorist. And I just want to be very clear. What he said was some of the opponents of Flock have terroristic tendencies or something like that. Every critic of Flock then heard that to be directed at them, and it was not. And it certainly was not directed at you and people like you who exercise your democratic right to advocate for policies at the local level that we disagree with. That is not, if you saw our inbox on any given day, you would understand who that comment was made about, and you'd understand why it was made. But that is not about mainstream political opponents and even activist groups that are very outwardly hostile toward Flock. That's the system we live in, as you said. I disagree with your advocacy and Bend, but I absolutely would fight for your right to advocate. And I think more people being involved is better, even, especially, I suppose, when they disagree.
Well, thank you for that. And that's
I appreciate you answering.
Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to say, I appreciate you answering, and I apologize for duplicating a question that's been answered before. My audio has been dropping out. I actually only heard about half of your response just there. So I'll listen to this again after the stream's over. And I've switched out to 3 different pairs of headphones and tried 2 microphones, and I'm just having some issue. Rebooted my system. I must be at the ISP level. So this has not been. It's been interesting for me.
Well, appreciate you powering through, Jonathan.
Technology just isn't there yet. It'll get there, and just getting there quickly. We have another question. Why are there no published independent third-party security audits of Flock systems? So that's something that with vp.net and other VPN companies, they have some third party come in and audit. Hey, these people aren't spying on you. But then, these companies even admit that, they don't keep logs, but they look at the data information in transit as it's happening. Yeah. So, people, they take the audits very seriously. So could you answer that question?
Yeah, this is going to mean more to you security folks than it does to me. But if you go to our website and you go to our blog, you'll see a post from last month announcing that we've commissioned a firm called Bishop Fox, which I gather is a well-respected security auditing firm, to do exactly that. And we are going to make the results of that public. So heard, like with a lot of things, people come to us with questions like that, and they're valid questions. And so we correct for them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And that's the thing is, with audits, like, our system with zero trust is, it can't be audited, and the audit is on you. Immediately, you're able to verify these things, and that's why zero trust architecture is the thing moving forward. It's just it's hard to understand it, especially for newcomers coming into technology. How do we know this data is secured? How do we know for sure that little Ricky from IT isn't going to go on a rogue rampage and dump all this on the internet? These are legit concerns. These things do happen.
They are legit concerns. I mean, maybe can I ask a question for you all? And
yeah, feel free. And we are an open book. Yeah,
of course, please.
So I want to preface this by saying we have an obligation to keep our data secure, and that is an obligation to our clients. It's an obligation to the communities that use us. So nothing I'm about to say should be read to or heard to undermine that. I do get confused when people say they're worried about their sensitive data being disclosed through Flock. What we're talking about is photographs of vehicles on public roadways. We're not talking about financial information. They cannot track you. They cannot follow you. They cannot determine where you go other than you've passed a particular point in time at a particular geographical point at a point in time. I do sometimes, with all the technology that is capable now of actually tracking us, we all carry these things around, and these things are capable of and do literally track us everywhere we go. I do wonder why the energy level about Flock is as high as it is.
Here's the thing that landed on our desk.
And
it was like, it was a complete new perspective that I would never even considered. And EMS, somebody working in emergency medical services, they go to some crack den to save somebody overdosing from fentanyl, and they're there in this neighborhood saving people daily. The cops don't know that. They pull this person over, and they see that this person is in a high traffic drug area, they come in with only limited information, or information that leads them to a conclusion in which isn't accurate, right? And so they're saving somebody's life, but in the computer it looks like they're going to visiting crack dens.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I sometimes wonder when people worry about the data
I've got
being accessible.
I got a really good one actually from our story we did a while back. There was a big study, and there were lots and lots and lots of flock cameras that were left open that either had just the administrative, default password, and a lot of them had no password.
Yeah.
Most of them had no multi-factor authentication. So these researchers went in and looked through all the cameras, and they expected, busy intersections, busy streets, maybe high crime areas. And what they found was a lot of cameras pointed at playgrounds, at city hall meetings, at political rallies, and there were literally no car. There's no cars in the middle of the playground, so there's no license plates to even be seen there. So I understand that you don't necessarily do that yourself. You know what I mean? Or I know Flock does a lot of the installation. So in those situations, I don't know if Flock was involved in setting those up in the first place, where that's kind of an issue that should be flagged.
That's a great example. I'm glad you asked about that. That's a great example. So those were not license plate cameras; those were video cameras, which is a different product. And that was a configuration error by Verizon of the network cards that were used in the cameras, and it wasn't. Well, I don't know what lots and lots and lots and lots is. It was roughly 60 cameras. That was of short duration. We had identified it before it was flagged by the researchers, and it had already been remediated. But that is one of those examples of things that I wonder when people get. So first of all, that's not a good thing. And we addressed it with Verizon. Like, our cameras are not configured to be publicly available. And those were publicly available. If you went to the dark web and found the IP addresses and then came back and went searching for them, they were public. It wasn't like you just open your browser one day and you see a feed. But I just got curious and I did some research. How many communities across the country make feeds of public places available on the internet deliberately? And there are thousands and thousands and thousands, including hundreds in New York Central Park. Again, I ask myself, like, what is it that people...
I can share some experiences with you and growing, like making communities online and the communications within them. These things just get shared on Discord. Like, it's really simple to just build a website. And I think it was back in like 2004, 2005. Somebody made something to where it accessed all of the cameras in the world for a certain product. And you can just sit there like on just click back and forth to the different feeds. So these things, these people, that's what they do. When these people go home from work and stuff, they're going on their computers and they're doing these things and making these things and like, look, man, look at what we can see. And some of the stuff was scary. You could see like babies in cribs. You could see like people standing outside of a building smoking a cigarette. Like, what the hell? Like, and this was back in like 2004, 2005. This is 2026.
It's Morgan Freeman at the end of that third Batman movie, right?
Yeah, where you there's a huge difference. So, like, when you have a camera that's just looking at a random place in public, there's no context. You don't know who any of those people are. You don't know what they're doing, and you don't know where they came from. You don't know where they're going. You don't know where they were last week. When you have an ALPR system that's tracking someone's movements, and every camera, so some of these cities are like completely covered. Essentially, all of the main thoroughways are covered with these cameras. You can't go anywhere without being detected by them. So you have somebody who drives around the city. Now, within a couple days, where they live, where they work, who their friends are, where they go, what churches they go to, what their hobbies are. You can literally pick out an entire understanding of this person's whole life based on where their movements are. You can also figure out which cars they are connected to and know who their friends are. So if you have, for example, activist group and they're trying to determine who they are, they could use this to track down every single activist group and figure out where they are and figure out who is coming together and speaking with each other and organizing.
Yeah, Chris, except you can't. And what you just said is always the beginning of every complaint, legal complaint, lawsuit. that is brought against communities for using Flock. It's always the same litany. It's always, you can track us, you can see where we're going, you can see our friends and family and where we worship and where we shop and on and on and on.
You understand? You're misunderstanding. I'm not saying that you can. I'm saying that the capability to track people is there, and these cameras can and do get hacked. So
No,
if the technical capability is there to track locations of people and their license plates.
Yeah, Chris, I am understanding what you're saying, and that is the argument in all of those cases. There have been more than 30 of them, constitutional challenges brought against communities for using Flock, making exactly the argument you're making, and more than 30, all of them so far, all of them, everyone has determined you cannot do what you just said can be done with these cameras. You cannot track the whole of a person's movements. And as a result, they do not implicate the Fourth Amendment. Now, that doesn't mean they never will. That doesn't mean as technology evolves, it never will.
If they couldn't be used to track movements, they wouldn't solve crimes. I mean, that's literally what they're used for.
They provide leads to solve crimes.
Right, but those leads are saying that this car went here at this time. That's tracking the location and the time of that car. And then you could say that the next intersection also saw that.
It's Chris, I know you're sitting in front of a screen with a face on it. That doesn't mean I can track all of your movements. It's a point in time. And that is not me saying that. This is the most recent was just 3 weeks ago, a federal district court in Norfolk, Virginia. And the plaintiff's expert who was hired to demonstrate to the court that the technology can do exactly what you're saying it can do, could not demonstrate it. Despite it being his vocation and his intention to go in, he had to admit he couldn't track the whole of anyone's movements.
I think that the problem here is we have a difference in understanding of what I mean by track. Okay, if you can say this person was at this location at this time, and so therefore they're a lead for this crime, you have tracked that person's location. Have you not? I mean, that's what that means.
At a point in time.
Which you're logging somebody's location, and then you could say, oh, we also have a data point where they then went to the victim's house. 10 minutes later, we have them going to the intersection by the victim's house. You have now tracked their location from point A to point B. And you can say by the amount of time from one point to the other, there was no time to stop anywhere. So you know exactly where they went from point A to point B. So you have tracked that location. I mean, like that's how the system works. That's how it's able to solve crimes, is by tracking those data points where this person moved throughout the city. That's what I mean. Like that is tracking somebody. And whether or not you can do that through the system, or whether the audits cover that or would tell you if somebody's doing it unlawfully, which is great, the risk is that the technology exists, somebody else can hijack that technology and use it unlawfully, which has already happened. You know, like you just said, there was the 60 cameras right there. And whether that's your fault or not, that doesn't matter. It means it's possible. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if no nuclear bombs exist, there's no risk that we're going to have a nuclear war. By having them exist, there is always that chance that it could happen, because you can't control every person to make sure they use them ethically. So you have created a technology that, regardless of your idea of how it should be used, it has the capability to be used unethically, and has been used unethically. And that's where people get so passionate and upset about it, is because right now the bad things that have happened are nowhere near as bad as they could potentially be. Like the level of hackers that are out there today and the things that they can do is absolutely mind-blowing. It's only a matter of time before somebody is able to use this. And the thing is, they usually, you know, when you have organized crime that does stuff like this and they're very good at it, they don't just like go in and try to mess stuff up and put a funny picture on it like a normal hacker does. They go in and they're under the radar, and they'll be lying there under the radar for 6 months, a year. Like, you know, look at that Salt Typhoon hack where the hackers were sitting there undetected for months and months and months, sucking up data on US officials and important government classified information. No one had any idea they were there. Like, for all we know, right now, that could already exist inside Flock and without anybody knowing, just because it hasn't been discovered yet. And when that happens, there's somebody who has the ability to track the movements of all kinds of people all over the country, which is highly dangerous. I mean, that could be used on worst case scenario. That could be used to assassinate a president at the highest level.
I appreciate your perspective. Again, this is, I don't know of another way that we as a society address these issues other than through the courts. And every court that has evaluated this has come out the exact same way. We are using track in a different way. If you want to track someone's movements, license plate readers are an incredibly inept way to do it. Like, again, we're all carrying the means of that in our pocket. We're all driving vehicles that have that give off a signal that literally can track everywhere you go.
Well, there's a difference. I have the choice to not use the phone. I don't have a choice to not exist in my community.
You have the choice to exist in a community that doesn't use the technology.
True. That's my take.
I think what it is people. I think people want to feel, and real shortly, people like me. I want to feel safe and secure, of course, but I don't want to feel watched. I think, and I think that's what people don't like.
I completely agree with that, Suzy.
Hey,
opt
Dan,
out.
before you go, can you answer a quick question for me?
Absolutely, John.
Yeah, one last question. He's got a hard stop here.
Please.
Okay, so I think I've explained my frustration with the legislative process, and something that I don't quite understand because it just happened this week, and I don't know the why behind it, but there was a few amendments of this ALPR bill, and in the earlier amendments, it had a definition of end-to-end encryption. And then there was some lobbying done, and that definition was ultimately removed. Do you know why that definition of end-to-end encryption is so contentious with Axon and Flock?
Yeah, I actually don't. I'm not familiar with the particular piece of legislation you're talking about in Oregon. There are members of my team who are. There's pieces of legislation in not all 50 states, but a lot of different states going on right now, and they're all slightly different. This goes to the point earlier of we're very much in favor of regulation, and we're trying very hard to make it uniform. And so I don't want to speculate here because I don't want to give you a fake answer. I guess I'll label it as speculation. One possible reason that a particular definition in a particular state might be contentious is if it contradicts definitions in other states or a federal definition, and then that makes it impossible or not impossible, but harder to engineer the technology to be compliant if you've got different definitions, different standards for the same things. I don't know if that's what happened there, Jonathan, genuinely, but it does occur to me that that's possible. Gang, I do have to go, or I'm gonna be late ferrying my daughter where she needs to be. And
we appreciate you, Dan. You are welcome. You are welcome to come aboard.
Gang, I appreciate this.
And, big thing.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and especially Jonathan. Genuinely, thank you for showing up. Thank you for fighting through the issues, and thanks for sharing your perspective. It's important for me on behalf of Flock to hear. So thank you, and thank you everybody who was commenting. I looked a little bit, and then I was getting distracted, not listening to the conversation, so I stopped. But I appreciate all the engagement, and thanks for letting me be a part of it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Dan. Take care.
Right.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you so much.
Oops.
All right. Well, everybody, this is what we're about. We're about privacy. And it's for me, I need those layers between me and the rest of the world. The rest of the world. And I think I did very well today. I didn't swear once. I think I kept everything pretty cordial. But let me just lay it out like this. I need these layers between me and the rest of the world's bullshit. I can't even look at the news without having a mental breakdown in today's with everything going on. And that's the thing is, with everything going on, it's not just everything's going on, it's everything's going on, and I have to do something about it, right? If I want to be proactive in my community, if I have an issue, and I do have an issue, I'm not a data point, I'm a human being. And I think a lot of people can respect that. But that's the thing is as I traverse the world and go out into the real world, do I feel safe? And I don't feel safe anywhere. That's the thing is, and I think that's the hardest thing for me in the world is I don't feel safe. I can get T-boned, I can get mugged, I can get robbed. These are actual crimes that happen everywhere. We just saw something what was it, a couple months ago, Suzy? Everywhere just started burning down. Everybody's an arsonist or something. Yeah, no, it wasn't an arsonist, and it was that shit's scary. I'm sorry, but that shit's scary. And that's the thing is, do I think surveillance is the answer to that? Like, how do you identify somebody that's homeless and stuff and hasn't had an ID in 10 years, and he's just wandering around on meth, burning stuff down? And then that's the thing is like now other people are they're just because they were in that area at a certain time, now they're being looked into. I don't agree with everything, and that's the thing is like I think I'm free to not agree with everything that's been said today. Tracking people and just tracking cars. People are in the cars. That's the thing is you're tracking the cars so that we can find the people, right? And that's I think that's the most important thing. And then that's the thing is like with data extrapolation and data interpolation, you can say, hey, this point A, point B, point C, point D. Now you have a travel pattern and the times. So now you can work something out. Like if somebody's going from point A, their home, to point B, the grocery store, twice or three times a week and stuff, you can say, hey, they're getting groceries. But in reality and stuff, they could be there buying or selling drugs in the parking lot, for God knows what. So surveillance isn't the answer. It's not going to give you the answers. The real answers, I think, are everybody being proactive in their community. But that's the thing is crime going up is not something that I kind of agree with. I think that there's always going to be crime, and to make a dent in it is my viewpoints on this. They vary and they differ so much from other people's that I almost feel hopeless sometimes because what can we do? That's the thing is like when I first came to Hawaii, and this is legit, this is real stuff. Like within the first couple weeks and stuff, we got rear-ended. And then another time we were in a parking lot, we hear a gunshot, pop, pop. And it was somebody by an ATM that I was like, wow, we hear gunshots. And we drove out of there. We got the hell out of there. Right. And so the next day we find out that this guy had shot a police officer. And then they locked the entire island down here. I'm talking dudes with mohawks, big old guns. They're standing on the sides of the roads. We went to the other side of the island, the rich people side, Kona, right? And these cops are all over the roads and everything.
Joe Pereira guy.
They're looking into our cars and everything. They're like, they're really going to catch this guy. You don't do that to a police officer and not expect like the entire cavalry to show up, right? And that's just like one thing. And it's like, would surveillance have like protected us against that? And that's the thing is having a bullet fly past my head. It's kind of scary. You know what I'm saying? Here's another thing that happened. We got a flat tire, and it's like 1 a.m, right? We got a flat tire at Taco Bell. We pulled over, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. There's no tow trucks that could get to us except for one guy that had a flatbed to come like change our tire and put a new tire on for us. Not even like 10 minutes afterwards, like after we left, it the tow truck driver got robbed, like he got shot at. So this thing is like there's wickedness out there, there's crime. So is surveillance really the answer to
terrible.
this? And I hate to share these stories because this is like it's wild. Like it's almost as if like we're a magnet to some wild stuff sometimes. But this is like legitimate things that are happening in our communities and that are scary. So I don't think surveillance is the answer to it, though. But I don't know.
In the state of Hawaii, they cannot. So the thing about it is, it's really hard to catch the criminals here in the state of Hawaii because a lot of police officers have said we call it the coconut wireless because we all talk, and it's word of mouth around here. And people say, that police, while they do wonderful jobs, and every police officer I've ever interacted here has been wonderfully, polite and cordial. But I think that they say they can't necessarily do anything, like he said. Like I think Dan said, they can't actually do anything or convict anyone with that information. You can literally show somebody a video, show the police a video of someone robbing you, and you're like, "Yep, that looks like somebody was robbing you." We can't, they can't necessarily like use it. It doesn't always get admissible. So a lot of this time, it's not. I feel like it's not always catching the criminals, but it's just we do get to protect our homes with it by seeing what's going on, but we don't catch the criminals necessarily, at least in our area, because that's just not what the police is. The police they always talk about how their hands are tied here, you know.
And there's different levels of this, right? The worst cases are us being exploited by, you know, these big tech companies. You know, our TVs are listening. They're recording all of our habits, and that's the thing I
And the
think
higher
is,
level agencies.
yeah, and it's, I saw a comment on there that the only thing we can do about these things are what Jonathan here is doing. You know, I shared my crazy stories with you. You know, me and Suzy have a lot, and that's the thing is everybody has their stories, right? We're all seeing crazy things going on in the world. But that's the thing is, you know, I'm more scared, I think, mostly for the people that don't want their information out there, that's being just like without like any effort at all. This is just how it is. Like their information just gets laid out in a police report. Here's everybody that were scanned in the area at that time. It's a FOIA thing, right? And there's actual advocacy for these things, for people going out and getting all these FOIA requests so they can actually see what's actually happening. And that's the thing, is like what's actually happening is, I don't know. Like I said, I sit back and I take this observer standpoint for all of this. And I try to keep my opinions to myself with this, but it is something that is on topic for most of my internal discussions with the, you know, with others, and it's hard to navigate this, right? But I'm really appreciative of you, Jonathan. It's one of those things that I want to be proactive in my community, but what can I be proactive about? And I don't have the answers. And that's the thing, is I don't think a lot of people even think about these things, let alone they have the answers as well. So do you guys feel safer, like being watched? I don't.
You know,
That's why I
Shane,
don't feel.
Shane, this is a couple weeks back. You said I don't have the answers, and it's really stuck with me, because nobody individually has the answers. It's when you reach out and start talking to other people that you can formulate a plan and come up with the answers. There's a solution out there, and I think that this format you have going on right here, you guys are doing a great thing, and the answers will come from here and other places. It's just, when I started out this thing in Bend, I was kind of isolated, just doing it out of my living room. Now that I've reached out and there are other people involved in what I'm doing, and I'm involved in other things, I'm learning. I know next to nothing. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and you'll learn. The more connections you make, the more you'll learn, and the more the answers will all come together. So you say at the end of every stream, onward. I'm saying that the answers will come, but I'm gonna have to step off because I'm having some audio issues, and all I'm hearing is electrical squealing in my ears. So I appreciate you guys having me on here, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you, John.
Bless you for coming on.
So that's the thing, is that and when I say I don't have the answers, I know what the answers are already. And that's the thing, is only together can we find them. And we learn that every day with technology and the teams that we work with and operate with. Is, you know, I find that the synergy between us all is the best way to move forward. And I think we can all do that in a positive light. You know, I don't want to be out there riding the streets. Like, I'm not one of those people, you know. I'm just a normal person that just, you know, just tries to do normal things. And I think the best thing we can do is just be kind in this world. And that's how you live above it. You see the wickedness, you just be kind, and you just go about how you live. But it goes without, you know, it can only be said with merit that the way we go about our lives is it can be affected by the bad shit. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing, is, and there's a lot of people out there that don't want good for people. Like, what's that Joker quote? You know, some people just want to watch the world burn, and that's like some nerds sitting in a basement somewhere that just when they have an agenda to fuck you up, they're going for it, right? And so, like, why hand them the ammunition for these things from our communities, like that just lands in a data report or gets aggregated from somewhere. And then all of a sudden, like, I know we all Google our names, right? We all kind of want to see what the search engines have on us, like Spokio, these sorts of deals. It's insane. Like I've been in places where I was there for 2 weeks and then, no signature or anything, using cash. And it said I lived there. How did it know I lived there? And this is like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And why does it have that information? And how did they get it? And I'm tired of wondering these things. I'm really tired of wondering how all this data and information gets out there. So now I'm at the level of I don't care how it's out there. It's there. It's definitely there. And that's the thing is these sources of information and stuff. We have to do something about this, right? It's do you want your kids being scanned at a playground, whether it's ALPR, whether it's actual video feed? And I don't care what the purpose is or what the actions are. Your family time is your family time. I get there's bad people out there, but I think to really protect from the bad, you have to value the good, right? And if you value the good, you don't put the good in situations in which the bad can affect them. I think that makes sense, right? And I think in any system, in any society and stuff, what is it that you're trying to stop all the bad stuff anyways for, right? It's to protect the good. Well, if you valued the good, you wouldn't put their data and information at risk. These things, these things are on my mind, and I want to talk about these things and say how we can value the good and value the good things together. But it sounds cliche and it sounds kind of cheesy most of the time. So, and that's the thing is you can't be cheesy in a world like this. It takes actual effort, actual moving forward with things, and actual real world experience. And I think that's something that we all have here with Suzy and Nathan and Chris. So I thank everybody. I think we had a great stream today. What's your take on everything, Chris? We can do some more Q&A and then we can close out if you want.
Well, there's just a few things that I just wanted to bring up because I spent the last week watching every interview and reading every interview with Flock and reading every page of their website and every study and paper and article I could possibly find. So there's a lot of things on here that I think are worth mentioning. There's a lot of claims that they make and sort of language they use to sort of push a certain narrative. Like for example, they say we don't track cars, we track people. I mean, we don't track people, we track cars. But functionally, it's the same thing. Like
Semantics.
The whole point of using it is to track a criminal. So whatever. But another one is that they only take still images. But I don't know if you caught that at one point. He's saying, "Oh no, that was a different technology. Those are the cameras." So yes, the ALPRs are taking still images, but they also have surveillance cameras that they offer. And beyond that, like here, I can even share something.
And it doesn't matter anyways if there's still images or not. What is a video? A video is just a compilation of still images. You've seen it on video reels back in the day where spin in the loop and scan it like or projected on the screen. And here's the thing is like even if they're not doing video or they're not doing other things, these things are actually scanning and getting the data and information. They don't need a video of you walking. They just need the AI to scan you and say that you're walking, right? And so yeah, we're not doing video, but you're doing other things with the AI, right? An Xbox Connect can do these things. An Xbox Connect plugged into my computer shoots dots everywhere and it can track my movement that way. You can track people's gait walks. You can track how people talk. I've seen these things. Like it's not far-fetched. Like this stuff actually exists. What are we looking at here, Chris?
So here they have the Flock Safety Video Integration, where you can take existing IP cameras and different other technology and then integrate Flock's software package into it. So, a lot of times they'll use the semantics about the hardware that their cameras or specifically the ALPRs are using. But the fact of the matter is they also offer this as a platform that you can basically hook up to whatever surveillance rig you want, and like come over here. And this is they have these little mobile systems where it has a little trailer and it's automated, has battery power, and it has it's called an end-to-end security ecosystem, mobile trailer, LPR, video, drones, audio detection, unified into a single platform. And as far as whether or not they get warrants or anything, one of the advertising points is an intuitive platform that your team can learn quickly. security operators can immediately view, search, and export video and evidence themselves without waiting for manual polls. So, like, why wait for the whole process when they could just get it directly right out of this machine? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different technology they have, and you'll notice throughout our conversation, he regularly would try to go back to just the license plate. He goes down to the lowest common denominator and talk about the one that has the least capabilities. But the fact of the matter is they're selling that along with an entire package. They have drones. They have automatic drones that are flying around spying.
What's
You know what I mean?
What's Flock's main source of income? Like, is it just the local municipality, like states, counties, and cities, like utilizing this stuff?
I think
they make contracts with them?
I think the bigger part of the business plan is like the monthly subscription fees, because they're going around and like one of the things they like to say that Flock is democratically chosen by communities, but they get around that all the time. Like the way it's democratically chosen. First of all, I think it was like 40 states have no regulations on ALPR, so there is no law that they have to get through. There's no process they have to go through. So the only like democratic process that exists for this in most states is if they have to do a budget, if they have to decide that they're going to use city money to pay for these, then it has to go to city council. Then people have a chance to express their concerns. So Flock will regularly do trial programs or pilot programs where they just go and they give them the cameras for free. And by doing that, they don't have to have the meeting before they implement them. They don't have to ask or tell anybody. So they just quietly put them up. And then eventually somebody's like, hey, what the heck is going on? Nobody asked us about this. And like that's what happened in Cambridge, Mass. And Digital Fourth got upset about it. And they're like, this shouldn't be here. And they got a law passed saying, you can't just do that. And that was one of those situations where they were like, you got to take the cameras down. And they did. And then a couple months later, Flock got caught installing 2 more cameras there. Even though they put a temporary pause and turned off all the cameras, Flock got caught installing 2 more cameras. Now, their claim was that it was an old work order that was supposed to get canceled and didn't. But that right there was enough for the city. It was like, all right, we're done with Flock completely. They banned them completely. We can't trust you. We said, don't use the cameras we have. So they're like, okay, cool. We'll put new ones in. You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot of situations where they're going around.
It's a private company that's contracting with the public sector of things. And that's where things get scary, right? There's loopholes between, being private and then not being public. You're not bound by certain rules. And that's the thing is like these little oopsies and stuff, like whether they installed these 2 things by accident or not, it's irrelevant because it happened, right? These things do happen, right? I see things like, get miscommunicated and you can lead to some serious fuck ups out there. But that's the thing is like, that's what being a smart engineer and a smart chief is about, is we don't fuck up, right? And that's, we oversee things so that they don't get to these levels. But we're not in the surveillance industry. We're in the privacy industry, and we're in the privacy lifestyle. And all this stuff just kind of irks me. And that's the thing is like, it's not just Flock. There's Axon out there. The when they shoot you with a taser and stuff, it all comes from one company. It's all certain like those body cameras that people wear. It's from the same company that when they tase your ass and you're flopping around on the ground like a fish. They're recording that shit and it's going to a data center somewhere. So if it's not one, it's the other, right? It's all wild.
So this, that they like to use a lot of like the scary crime statistics and stuff because, like, let's be real, like none of us want our friends and family murdered. We can all agree on that. We do want criminals to get caught. So that's the way they do get support from this. They say, hey, look, we're solving a lot of crimes, and so there's the city of Piedmont, California, which Flock themselves called them a super user because they were in for like, I think like 16 years, something like that. And they went all in on it, had a bunch of cameras. And what their long-term data showed is that their license plate hits to investigative leads for law enforcement was less than 0.3% of hits that actually equated to leads. So they said there's not even a moderate degree of correlation between ALPR hits and stolen vehicle recoveries, let alone any apparent casualty. And less than 0.3% of the hits might translate into a useful investigative lead for police. And that cost them $576,378.80 of taxpayer money to do that.
So we're getting surveilled and we're the ones footing the bill for this bullshit. Here's the thing: if
Yeah.
it's not useful in one area, sure as hell it's going to be useful in some other area and stuff. It's going to be, hey, show me how many Mexicans are walking down the street. You know, it may not be a prompt that's available in the actual software for some of these companies out there, but it's a prompt for some system engineer. I promise you, they don't have to use what everybody else uses.
This one, it was San Marino in LA County. They had a big problem with burglaries. So that was like the reason they went and hooked up Flock. And Flock, sold them on this idea that this will deter people from even doing the burglaries. And then if they're not deterred, then we'll be able to arrest them and it'll clean everything up. So they installed all the cameras, made a big press thing, told everybody, hey, there's cameras are up, whatever. So of course, immediately after, burglaries went down, which makes sense. And Flock immediately went and said that 70% of all crimes went down. Now, the chief of police there was like, I have no idea where he got that statistic from. They're like, yes, the burglaries did go down a little bit, but I have no idea where he came up with the 70% of all crime stat. Well, 3 years later, they looked at it, and burglaries had gone up 5% since installing the Flock cameras, and all other crimes stayed the same. So after installing this extremely expensive system and putting everybody under surveillance for several years, the problem that they're trying to solve got 5% worse.
So my question is, it's not even a question, I already know the answer is, who's getting paid and who's paying it is the real question I have, because I hate it when I live in this world and somebody's pissing on my leg and telling me it's raining. I think I've said that before, and it stands true now. Like, stop throwing numbers at me that, unless I'm out there in the real world and experience it for myself. You can tell me 700%. You can tell me 7%, 70%. I don't know what the hell this shit means. And is it stopping things or not? And that's the thing, is nobody can answer that question to me. Is it helping or isn't it? And I don't know. I don't know what to believe. But that's the thing, is like, 1 in 14 cars, that's 1 in 14 cars where you're the bad guy if you hit that chance. Like, I don't know, like, percentages and all that, math and everything, but it's simple math. It's like 1 in 14 cars. That means 14 cars in a row, and they're looking for somebody. Your day could get pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I want to also mention, they brought up this study that they did, and even mentioned that a lot of people discredit this study because it was paid for by Flock. And that was the one that says 10% of all crimes in America are solved because of Flock, or solved with using Flock. Now, the way they determined this was they used 2 employees of Flock and 2 academics that they hired, and they asked 246 Flock customers about the data. And that's it. And that alone told them that 10% of all crimes in all of America are solved by Flock. They didn't have to talk to anybody that doesn't use Flock. They didn't have any of that data, but somehow that told them everything. So I have a couple quotes here from, we have, let's see, Michael Sierra Arevalo, a professor of sociology at the University of Texas at Austin, and the author of The Danger Imperative, a new book about policing in America, said, what is it? This borders on ludicrous, clear evidence of what would be considered a massive leap. It was be considered a 4-alarm fire research finding. And then we had another one here, Jeffrey Fagan, who's from Columbia University law professor, said, I doubt this would survive any peer review. So, I mean, those are from the other academics, because they didn't get it peer reviewed. There was no anyone else looking at it, and the other academics that do look at it literally laughed at it, like they made jokes about it and how ludicrous it was. So that's the number one study he brought up himself, and that's the one that Flock uses for their marketing. That's what they tell to all the police stations that are considering it. They're like, look, 10% of all crimes solved by Flock. This guy said so, the guy that we paid. So,
and that's the thing with this is, like, this, most normal people look at this data and information, and then 20 minutes later it's like, forget, right? It's like, okay, cool, numbers, right? But what do these numbers exist out there in the wild for? It's to get investors, right? It's to get people to sign on with their company, become subscribers. I guess that's what the sheriff said earlier, that they're a subscriber to Flock and everything. So it's who's getting paid, who ain't, well, I'm not getting paid for this. Are you guys getting paid for this? Because, oh wait, no, you're paying for it. My apologies. That
I'm not allowed to opt out of it is my
yeah,
thing.
like I unsubscribe.
I would,
I also
you
I
didn't
know,
vote
unsubscribe,
for it
right?
if
working
I
Put
for
my
hate
hand
the
up.
paid.
It's me.
I
I'm
hate
That's
people
funny
unsubscribe.
too.
don't
Is that
go
they
out
say
in
that
public just because, you know, oh well, don't, you know, you're allowed to be recorded in any public space. Well then just don't I just don't leave my house. It sucks, you know. It sucks.
And then look, I know we don't discuss politics and everything, but you know, looking at social media and the tech side of thing, it kind of looks like there's a bunch of like crazy Nazi shit going on. Like, I'm sorry, but this whole, you know, this whole like eradicating entire people out of the nation, you know, like it's just it's looking pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? It's repeating the same patterns against the people. And the
Yeah.
people, I'm sorry, but they're rioting in the fucking streets. Like they're out there rioting in the damn streets and stuff over the things that they believe in.
We have a
So, you
short
know,
memory.
and I hate to say this, but like whatever the fuck's going on, excuse my language, that's just crazy. Like it's absolutely crazy, and that's just an understatement. Me being polite about this stuff, you know, like the links that are shared daily is just like, can this world get any more retarded? Is what really what I want to know. All politics aside, it I don't stand for this stuff. I'm pro-human. I'm like, hey, let's do some positivity. Let's be creative. Let's find that synergy. Let's be a part of our community. Yeah. You go outside, there's people holding pitchforks and baseball bats and stuff because they don't like ice. Yeah, it's I don't know, man.
Or
And
you're
then
afraid of ice.
or you're afraid of ice, right? And these are legitimate concerns. Like, hey, you know, I might get fucking deported to fucking El Salvador
Or
or South Africa.
some girl got shot in the face that is about my age and has a child and is a regular mother. So
And here's
I
the
have a
thing.
reason to be scared, you know.
Yeah, you do. And that's the thing is we shouldn't be living in fear. We should be living in like love and light and all this, right? It ain't like that. And I asked that question earlier. It's like, is this all like the Hunger Games? Like with people losing their jobs in mass? Like, look at all the layoffs. Like, there's companies that they're just laying that people off in droves. Right? When that unemployment runs out and stuff, you know, who else is going to be out there in the street rioting? So it's like, is all this surveillance just for the Hunger Games? And who was it? Was it Bondi or the other one that said that for the people being deported, we should put them on TV? Like, what the hell was that? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Did you just say that?
Oh
And,
yeah, the game thing. That
like,
was
so
strange. That was a
let
little
me
sick.
let me just go ahead and make this clear. Like, I'm not about this, like the games. You know what I'm saying? This is like, I'm not for capturing people and like putting them on a TV show, and let alone put some fucking cameras everywhere that we pay for it, foot the bill. So that how do I know that there's not some like TV show in the background with all the surveillance where everybody's watching this to have a good laugh at us?
You waiting for Candid
Fuckers.
Camera to pop out for you?
Getting punked? Are we getting
yeah,
punked?
there's something I forgot to bring up. I
Get
really want to
punked
bring
in
this
the
up to Dan. I totally forgot it. This is something I read about this morning, and I've never heard about this one, but I think that this one's kind of enraging, and I think that a lot of people would be really pissed off about this. Flock devices, including those security cameras, there's intelligent security cameras, have been installed by more than 100 public school systems nationally.
Yes, it's true. My kids had
What?
cameras at their schools and they were in high school.
I'm not cool with that. Like,
It was
I'm
to
sorry, but
catch
the
kids
whole
vaping.
the whole
That's
That's what they
pedophiles
were
running the
doing.
country stuff to catch people vaping. Is that what you said?
Right.
The
The whole
kids, yeah,
Our
pedophiles running the
it was to
country
catch
doing that?
kids vaping in
Our
school, in
country
the
has proven
hallways.
they can't even hold pedophiles
And they
accountable. Like,
would.
no, you can't be videotaping on children. What the fuck?
That's the, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
I
kind
told
of,
them I wasn't comfortable. You know, I didn't like that. You know,
they
that
need to
school was
back
terrible.
all the way off with that bullshit. Like, they need to
And
miss
they're
this
using,
with
just
that
for the
bullshit.
recent, the top news talking about, they have used that to try to find kids to deport. So it's like they're putting flock cameras at schools to try to deport kids. Like,
Isn't that just the most pathetic thing
that's
you can
like,
think of is
you're
to,
kind of evil now. Like,
No,
you're
it's
kind of
not,
a
because
predator.
like
Yeah.
that order that they're trying to do is go after the weakest people, like women and children, and splitting up families. And you know, like,
Why
I don't want to bring politics into this, but let's just say it for what it is. That shit's happening, and it's happening. And I'm
I'm for
like,
humans.
it's happening. That's
I'm
all
for
I can say.
team
But here's the thing.
human.
Even
No.
if, I think, honestly, even if you believe that every single person that was ever here illegally should be deported, even if you believe that, I have a
Sure.
hard time believing anyone thinks we should have AI-powered cameras and facial recognition inside our schools to try to catch them. I don't.
Or the
Even the
level
people
of
that support
cruelty
it,
that's been
come on,
getting used.
it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the crazy thing, like with Flock, is that 75% of all of their clients have joined the National Lookup tool, which gives them access to and also gives that tool access to their data. So there's people in Florida have the ability to be like, you know what, let's see if this person is in Washington or this person's in California. Like, there's no reason. I mean, there's very few times where somebody in Florida needs to be looking at license plates in Washington state. You know what I mean? And if there is a legit reason, then there's already systems in place for them to get access to that data. There's no reason that they all need access to that at all times. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And just appreciate show appreciation for you guys, like everybody commenting and sharing with us and speaking with us. We highly appreciate that. Thank you so much. Like it means the world to us, you know, to have a voice and that you guys have a voice too. And just know that you're heard and valued. Your concerns are legitimate. You know, you should hear some of the topics that are the same topics even that we're discussing, you know, internally, and not just between us, but with like other people in the world. And you know, some of the things that they say or bring to our attention with proof, with sources, is like undeniable, and it's absolutely like crazy. It's driving me up a wall crazy. As in, like, I look at this stuff daily, and you guys joining us, I look at this stuff daily. Chris looks at this stuff daily. Nathan looks at this stuff daily. Suzy looks at this stuff daily. And if I'm not looking at it and I'm doing something else, others are looking at this stuff and sharing it with me. So I'm then again looking at this stuff daily, right? And these are real world things happening. So it's like there's two layers, right? There's what is being presented and being discussed, and then there's what's actually happening, right? This is cool too. We can discuss things, but you know, stop is all I have to say with that. Stop. Like when I go look up at a camera and stuff, like my answer to this is no. How about that? How about no? How about no? I don't consent to this. I don't want to be a part of whatever charade is going on. I don't care what the justifications are for it. I'm not here on this floating rock in space to be ruled by some AI systems, and which is, you know, these things are inevitably going to lead to. It's a control thing, right? We saw this in the Matrix. It's about control. How about no to that too? Like, no. If I wanna navigate without fear, you know, I think I'm more than deserving to do that. And I think Suzy is too. I think Chris is too. I think Nathan is too. And I think all of you are too. You know, why is it value the data points and not value the, you know, human condition in which we can better our lives and live better lives, and live healthier
Exactly.
lives, right? And that's the thing too. Is like, you know, with the
We need
surveillance,
to be let to be living
it's not
freely.
just I'm not talking about Flock. I'm talking about Ring cameras. Like I'm talking about Axon. I'm talking about all these other ones that they have their own myriad of whatever they're coming at us with. But you
Google
know,
cameras.
Ring just canceled their partnership with Flock because I guess that was like, I don't know why they did that, but they'll just partner with another company, which is partnered with, you know, another company, right? It's a chain link thing. And it's like, we're not doing this because somebody else is, right? We don't do live video feeds, but we have a partnership with these guys who get the information from here and then they do a live feed, right? Now I'm not doing it, they are. But that's the thing, is like that's how this all works in technology and in San Francisco and anywhere, right? It's and like with Discord, oh, we're not collecting IDs, we're not getting your information, it's some third party, right? Cut the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It's you're doing it, right? You're the one that's pushing that for that to happen, or you're the ones that's doing this behind the scenes. Like the first level of IDs they got hacked. And I'm going to pull this up afterwards. The second one that just happened yesterday, that you linked me to, Chris. That first level, that first one was with Palantir. Palantir was behind that and funded that shit so that the IDs would go to them. Like, get out of here with this stuff. It's so blatant and so obvious that what's actually happening versus what we're discussing and can discuss are two different things. And it's insulting. It's annoying, actually. And for me to actually have to understand and be aware of these things and make other people aware too, that they're feeding us bullshit. And I'm not saying Flock is, right. We had a wonderful stream today, but when we're looking at things like Discord and that Palantir investment and requiring IDs, and then the whole world is doing this across all of the companies, like, I think there's some shit going on, guys, and I don't know what it is, but I think we should get to the bottom of it.
Well, and I think too, I never really got a straight answer exactly for how does the Flock camera system determine when to take a picture of the rear of the car. They say, oh, we only take a picture of the rear of the car, right? Well, wouldn't you have to be taking video constantly to determine?
I can answer that for you.
Right,
Okay.
I can actually answer that for you. What I found
amazing.
in their documentation is that, and this is in their marketing documentation, is that sometimes and still image isn't good enough, and that you can contact them and get the video clip of it. So yes, they absolutely are. They have to be like that. You know what I mean?
Right. It's obvious. It's,
That
how
was
would you
the
know
camera's
that the
thing.
rear of the car is in the viewfinder unless you were looking all of the time? And then the other question to that is then who else can access that when viewing all of the time? So if I can just hack
Hire
in
agencies.
or log in or type in
NSA.
some address into a URL and say I can watch this camera all of the time, then
Yeah,
where is
and they
that
do.
data really going?
And-
Anybody can
and-
screen share or record
Yeah,
their
they can,
screen,
or they can
take
go
a
discuss it at a bar. They record it on their phone and show it to their significant other at home. They do these things, right? And yeah, I appreciate you, Ali, to bring that up. Carbine. Dr. Padfield mentioned them, I believe, and yeah, they're another one out there. So if it's not one, it's the other, right? And it's the justification for we're walking around with trackers in our hands. Yeah, we are, but that's the thing is like, where's the choice for us? Exactly, Jinx, right? Where's the choice? There's no choice.
See this right
Look
here?
at this.
This is a guy. That's him. That's the guy who did the article. He's like, look at this. I'm on camera and I have access to that. So to say that they're secure and no one can gain access to that, and that there's no, I mean, we're watching a video of a guy right now, And let me ask you, how many rears of a car have you seen in this video here? How many license plates have you seen?
I think I saw one.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's one in the corner
right down
there,
in the very corner.
3.
I think you catch a
Just for a
glimpse.
second there, I think I saw.
I saw a sliver. I have not seen any license plates.
If we pause it
know what I'm saying?
real
If
quick
you
and
were asking me to do a
we'll see
captcha,
it.
I'm not sure if I could do
Man,
it.
that's conveniently
Either
placed
way.
at the crosswalk there, huh? How shouldn't it be aimed down a little? See the plates there.
And look at it. The license of the cars that are on the side of the camera are forward. So, and most cars don't have a license plate on the front. So the cars that have the license plate on the rear are over on the other side of the street where you're not going to capture it from this angle. So again, what are we looking at here?
I don't know what
Great
we're
point.
exactly looking
He
at.
did admit these were the cameras, though. Yeah, he did admit that these are the cameras, and these were the ones that were left completely wide open, and just anybody could just go in. I mean, this is one over in a park. This is
like
somebody
a green
sharing
belt.
a nice private moment in the park, and he's like, "Yeah, I can just go in there and look at that."
They can unblur that stuff too.
And here's the thing: is like when we're asking questions on the stream, guys, like we already know the answers. Come on, like we work in information security, and we have like I'm sorry, but like there's like the level of sources and the things that Chris like looks into. Like Chris is on another level, guys. Like like the stuff that like he knows with all of this is just like it's all I'm expecting now is like for a clown to be rolling around on a unicycle honking his nose and stuff, because the world is it. Here's how it is. It do be like that. And I'm still at the point, guys. I'm still at the point, Nathan. This one's for you. I still have not seen any solutions outside of my hamster ball.
The hamster.
I'm not seeing any solutions. I think I might start a hamster ball company. Will that count as a vehicle?
Would it obfuscate camera?
Well, and that is the thing is, to be fair, you're looking at Flock's live
depends.
streaming
Well,
cameras
you have
and
to
not
put
the
a license plate on
ALPR.
the hamster ball.
That is true. Well, that's the thing too, is like, what's the live streaming cameras for? It's for the security and stuff, and it's also attached to the AI. I mean, come on, like let's be real.
And as we know, it's not like now they're saying, oh yeah, we went back and we put passwords on all of them now, right? So nobody can just log in from willy-nilly
and that's the thing too, is like you don't need to log in willy-nilly. You just load up
exactly.
Kali
If
Linux
it exists,
on a laptop.
People will be able to access it. That's the whole point.
You just any cell phone that's configured to do so can read the data that's being transmitted from a 4G LTE or 5G transmission, which is what these cameras probably have in them. Right? I haven't looked at the technology. I don't care.
Right.
But
if the ability is there to do so, then it will be done.
It will be done. That's the thing.
It goes through the wireless, which is also vulnerable. You know, the wireless cameras that they have out there.
Yeah, and this is so this is stuff that, I mean, we're going to be looking more into as they the future comes along. But like I said, this is just one of many out there. There's competition for this stuff. There's a need for data. And one thing, if you guys are watching here, just Google the word data brokers and Google the word shadow brokers. Right? There's ways to get this data and information to other companies without having to be transparent about it. Right? You can do an oopsie. Like load it all up onto one system. Like here's all of the information everywhere, and then somebody oopsies, and then it gets logged into, and somebody else now has that data, but you never gave it to them, right? They got it themselves. So these things are happening, right? That hack that Chris just shared, like 1 billion, like what was that? 1 billion people, or was it 1 billion records? That shit's insane.
3 billion records, 1 billion people, I think.
Once your information is out there, do you still have an identity? Like if anybody can just be you? And really, it's somebody can sign up for at a bank as you. They can go get loans out as you. They can go online as you, or they can fudge stuff to make it look like you did something. And so all these things run through my brain. Is it actually happening? I don't know. It's not my job to be out there like doing this stuff. Like, and it's the more I look into it, and I'm like, yes, there's more solutions to all of these things. And then next week, something even worse comes along. It's like, Jesus.
I was going to say thank you to Allie Ames. She just sent me a document full of all kinds of good information about all this stuff that I'm definitely going to be reading through and learning up even more about it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, stay tuned. Like we're moving off of Discord here soon. I'll have that done by the 28th, but we have some cool things in stride for everybody that I think everybody can greatly benefit from, where we can all speak freely, and it's not something you guys have seen before. I think it's
also remember, we have social hours on Wednesdays now every week. So there are two streams, and social hour on Wednesdays is always welcome for everybody to come on and to talk. So
yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
you guys
last week
just
we had Mark Carfello's on, and we've had Christopher Salone on. We had Jonathan's been on a couple times. So absolutely stop by, guys. Join the panel. We have no planned topics. We just get in there and talk about whatever.
Join the thing. You can even hide you don't even have to be on camera. You can sign on and be the name anonymous if you want. If you just want to talk, be about it. But the only thing that we ask is just be polite. Like I don't care really what you say, but just be polite, be cordial. Don't put others down, and don't say anything that can negativity resonates. Right? We ain't about that. We're about positive stuff here. But I mean, if you got some stuff to say and you're passionate about it, feel free. You know what I'm saying? Feel free. That's the whole point of having a voice. Yeah.
I want to also add a comment about he mentioned that they don't sell your data, which is a lovely selling point to tell people. But I think it's worth mentioning that their own privacy policy says that they share information often of a personal nature with their partners, which include Amazon Web Services, SendGrid, Help Desk Tools, Salesforce, HubSpot, third-party service providers, company-controlled affiliates and subsidiaries, and vendors working on their behalf. So that's all.
So it was like 500 vendors working on their behalf. Like, what are they doing with it?
They had 5 pages of partners on their program that are all getting access to all of this data. and they're like GPS companies and facial recognition companies. The whole tech stack of it, all that's available in surveillance, basically. And that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like
and
any one of these on their own aren't super dangerous, but they link them all together, and that's where it gets really, really dangerous. And luckily, I'm proud of the world that got pissed off when they announced the Ring partnership, and a lot of people immediately canceled their subscriptions. And like that's often the only way to hurt these people is hurt more accounts, is take their money away. And a lot of people canceled. They were like, I'm not okay with that, and they had to back down, which is awesome. And I mean, we think we all know they're probably still going to get that data eventually anyway, some other way. But it was good to see that enough people care about this stuff enough and made enough noise that they were like, okay, crap. And it's even funnier that it
Raised
cost
awareness
$20
too.
million
Right?
to do it.
That was the big thing, is that it just raised awareness and, like the public sphere, and it just, made more normies, for lack of a better term, pay attention to this type of thing. And I think that's what's really important, is just raising the awareness itself. Because once people start paying attention, they realize like, oh, this is a whole bunch of bullshit.
it is a bunch of bullshit. Imagine you're just driving along, you get ripped out of your car and thrown on the ground, and you can't do nothing about it. What are you going to do with like 7 foot tall guys with like heavy equipment on them, like stepping on your back and stuff? Like that's the thing, is like, oh, our bad, right? Our bad. Like you just got scarred. Like you're like, sorry, but you're gonna be going to sleep at night thinking about that shit for the rest of your life. Like it's just
It's
how it
scary.
is. And that's the thing, is like, and we live in this world, the bad does outweigh the good. And I think that's the justification for why all this stuff is happening. Or at least that's what they tell us is why it's happening, right? We got to stop the bad stuff, right? That ain't the way. Like, first try valuing the good stuff. Like, I don't feel valued in all of this. Am I a bad person? I don't think so.
Yeah, John, like John said, it shouldn't be as much about catching criminals as it should be about protecting the citizens, that
Yeah.
don't want
And
to be violated by this.
I don't feel protected from somebody in China that wants to go grab this information and find out
Yeah,
stuff, or
it
even advertisers go get this information. They know that I walked into a store and grabbed a candy bar or something, and then
it
all of a
it
sudden they're pushing thoughts in
nullifies
my head.
it nullifies the safe feeling you get when you have a camera up that somebody else can take that info and use it against you, because now you're making yourself vulnerable by putting it out there.
Yeah,
It's not right.
and that's the thing too. Is like, um, I'm reading over what Chris is showing us here. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like we can say the to be politically correct and all of this, but let's just say it for what it is. Like these things and these technologies are going to be used in these black neighborhoods, in these people of different ethnicities and stuff. I mean, there's Nazis running everything right now. It's how it
Yeah,
is.
Oh, they're
So
going
what
don't
can
to
we
want
test
expect
it
from that?
against the people that don't have a voice, right? That's what, that's the whole plan. They're going to use it
marginalized.
first and roll it out in these communities that don't have a prominent voice or the ability or financial ability, obviously, to do anything against it. And
Good
then
point.
after that, they will expand it to everybody else, which is what they've done with everything in the past.
And that's the thing too, is they I'm reading ExStaticJ's comment here. I find it hard to believe that the chief legal officer wasn't kept in the loop on the legislation being written in Oregon. Who else would have directed a lobbyist to go to Salem and lobby for Flock? And let me look at it from this angle: is why would they send somebody in the first place? It's so that it doesn't have a snowball effect where everybody else is canceling and getting these things out of city. That's bad PR. You know what I'm saying? So they have to do that. Like if you're running your company, you have to send somebody out there. Your company's going to get messed up. And it do be like that. Is all I have to say. So yeah, and that's the thing, is like they're kept in the loop. Everybody has more information than what they let on, and that's the thing too. Is like we have all of the information, we have all of the facts. Like we thoroughly investigated this. All I had to do was like one prompt with Gemini, and it led me on a path of just like looking into everything. And it was everything that I already knew. It's everything that you guys already know. It do be like that. So I mean, eventually I'm gonna have my hamster ball, and I'll be protected. You guys won't.
So this is live stream of a camera pointed at young children on a playground swing set in California was live streamed on the internet, with each moment of movement recorded and saved, with the ability for anyone who clicked on a freely available link to review movement on that camera at any point over the last month.
Oh,
Children in a playground. Like, what?
I wouldn't
Yeah.
want my kid on that playground.
Here's the thing: is like with all this bullshit, like protect the kids and everything, and at our expense, like we're paying for it, and also we have to give up our information, our IDs and stuff. These platforms is all protect the children. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah, I don't trust that this stuff is going to be protecting the children. When you're scanning these kids like that, no, like only bad shit can come from that. And I look at human history, only bad shit has come from it so far. Why can I expect any different? Imagine that, you're sitting somewhere in a restaurant and this guy comes up to you and he fucking tells you everything you've done and everywhere you've been, and pressures you or like harassing people. Or can you pull that back up? What's the level of harassment that this was used? Like in small little podunk towns, like where I was, they have like what, 6 officers and like 1 chief.
This is like a suburban Atlanta city. So right outside of Atlanta is in Brazelton. Oh, I'm not sure. You just harassed multiple people, though.
Wow.
At least it wasn't targeted at one person.
Oh, the question is why Gemini and not Anthropic? I have access to all of it. Like I use Gemini just because it does the deep research and they already have all the data and information anyways. So I like to get information from one and then from the other and kind of come to my own conclusion on it. Like Anthropic, they're just scraping the internet too, right? And that's kind of what Google is. Like they've already scraped the entire internet and they've done it from the 90s. So I want to see how the information is. I noticed that Gemini does fib. It makes shit up all the time. But then I noticed Anthropic does that stuff too. So the research and stuff with the AIs is it's good. It's good, but at the same time too, when it's not good, that leads to very not good things, right? Like these are the things that form our belief systems and everything, right? So Gemini, just because they if you want the technical side of this, Ali, is they have the most massive data center, and they have the rights to the TPU, which are the processors in which calculate the AI data. So all of the other AI companies, they're playing catch up because they're using the video cards from NVIDIA. So Google's already ahead of everybody, and they will be for like the next 50 years as to build out an infrastructure such as what Google has would take 25 years per data center just to get these things up and going at that scale. And then when they're at that scale, they still don't have the rights or the silicon or the chips that are used like even in our Android phones, the TPUs. It's like a super processor. It's able to calculate things at such a level that you see things like OpenAI and Anthropic, they're even renting data center access and space from Google. So, and just to make it short, it's because Google won the AI war, and everybody else they have their cool things that's cool about them, but Google won. It's just how it is.
Yeah, they do seem to be buying out all these companies, and not to target Google or anything, but there is they got a whole kill list called the Google kill list, whatever, and or the graveyard of all the companies they bought up and absorbed, like Nest cameras got absorbed by them, and now they have Google cameras, and it's the amount of privacy that went away from the switch from Nest to Google cameras was massive. I don't have it in front of me, but I may pull that up for some discussion on the difference.
There's a question here. Do you have any thoughts on the conflict between Anthropic and Department of War right now? Here's the thing, Ellie, is I do have thoughts on these things, but I'm going to keep them to myself. They're mine. They're my thoughts, right? But let me say this about Anthropic. They scanned like millions of books to steal people's intellectual property. They got sued for billions of dollars for this, just so that they could train their AI and all this data and information on it. Now Grok is integrating into all government systems for classified and unclassified. So here's my thoughts on it. I don't give a fuck. Like it's all so shady and stupid that I don't give a shit who's arguing. I don't care. Give us a good product, give us a great product. Let us make humanity better with it is my suggestion on that. So my thoughts on it, it's just, I can go on for hours about it, but it is what it is.
It's amazing how many stories are like this. It's like one after another, one after another. And that's the thing, like, his point is true. He made a couple points that are legit. Like, one, it's a very small percentage, but if you are stalked and harassed by a police officer, do you care that that was only a small percentage of the overall people, or does that really affect your life and traumatize you? You know what I mean? These are human beings, so like to say, yeah, it's only a few people, that doesn't do much for me. Like the fact that it's possible and it's done and it happens regularly, and what's crazy, they were saying that all the officers know how the system works. They know all the stuff is logged and they know how accurate they are. Well, if they know that the stuff is being logged, I don't think all these officers would be jeopardizing themselves and getting themselves in trouble by stalking and harassing people with them. So obviously there are some officers that maybe don't know everything about these systems. So maybe it's also possible that they don't understand that 1 out of 14 cars that it flags might be absolutely innocent and they might pull a gun on some poor woman who has nothing to do with anything bad. So, I mean, I think that it's just disingenuous to say that all officers out there know all of this stuff. You know what I mean? He is the chief legal officer and there were questions he couldn't answer. You know what I mean? And I don't expect anybody to know everything, but if the chief legal officer of Flock Safety can't answer some of those questions, how can we expect that every single one of the police officers in America knows the answer to that question?
And that's the thing too. Is
They
like,
don't.
I don't trust shit. I ain't gonna trust shit neither. If we can link that cypherpunk manifesto into the comments. If you guys haven't already, if you go to vp.net, scroll down to the bottom and press the cypherpunk manifesto. It's just read it. It was written by Eric Hughes in 1993, which, these are the people who created encryption, right? These are the mathematical geniuses that came up with things like cryptocurrencies. These are like the pioneers of the fucking internet, excuse my language. But this, if you read it, and I hope that it resonates with you because it resonates with us, right? Privacy is the ability to share the information with somebody or a group of people at your leisure, at your discretion, right? You share this information because you chose to do so. When this choice is not presented to us like on the table, right off the bat, instantly it's going to be used for shady stuff. Like, look at humans. Like, people are mostly good in this world, but that's the thing, is like, what about the bad shit? And they do these things. Like, look at the algorithms and stuff. They're all designed to sell you shit. And that's the thing, is like, if I want to look for a ring, if I want to look for some Christmas gifts, if I want to look for some birthday gifts, if I just want to go shopping in general, for nice things, like, I don't need somebody else on the network that starts getting advertisements for that stuff, right? And how the hell do I speak about, like what was it, lawnmower or something? We talk about something, we're not around any technology, and then all of a sudden we start getting advertisements on social media about that shit. Like, what the and it's not because they were listening in, it's because they pushed it into your head, or they predicted that you would be wanting this or needing this based on, off of your other habits. Like, what was that movie Don't Look Up, where they predict how people die, and it was like, you're gonna die to like some Gorlak, and at the end of the movie she gets eaten by a Gorlak on a different planet, when all the billionaires blasted off of the exploding Earth and went and landed on their new planet, so that they're the oil tycoons and everything. They're the ones that, they made it because they're rich. And so, these things predict everything, and it's insane. Like, I'm not a part of the fucking algorithm. Like, I mean, I probably am, but for here and for our little community, is my name is Shane, and what's up? That's it. That's all people need to know. So yeah. Jonathan said this legislation in Oregon was tasked with defining E2EE, which is end-to-end encryption, in the ALPR bill. It was pretty clear that the majority didn't know what it is or does. And that's just the world that we live in. Like, you can't explain these things to people But I think the best way to explain it to somebody, like you have to speak to them like they're 5, right? Actually, most people in America, over 54%, only have the ability to read and write at a 6th grade education level. And that's only the ones you know about, right? That are included in the statistic. So when you start speaking end-to-end encryption, even if it's end-to-end encrypted, cool, they can be end-to-end encrypted from their camera to the cloud and the data center. The real end-to-end encryption needs to be between us and that data that goes into the data center, and then we authorize whether or not it can be used, right? And that's our likeness. So, and that's the thing, guys, is we can discuss these things, and it's important that we do, but we have to explain these things at a level in which people can understand. And all that needs to be understood is you exist, you matter, right? You're valued, but you're valued by us. These cameras, they don't value you. All they value are the patterns about you, and the patterns about you are not you as a person, right? Some EMS driver that's going to go save people in some crackhead neighborhood, he's not a crackhead. He's saving people's lives. But the AI, does it know better? No, it's not going to know better because it doesn't have a soul, right? It's these are soulless things that are being shoved in our face. Like, and it's insulting. It's absolutely fucking insane. It's absolutely fucking insane.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is they try to sell it as some type of false sense of security, right? But in reality, only 1% of people out there are committing all of these crimes, like murder, rape, violent crimes like this. And it's a very small percentage of people. So why do we have a system that is targeting 100%, 99% of people, when in reality, what we need is something that is targeting these 1% of people that are causing all of the problems?
Yeah, and protecting the rest of us.
Exactly.
And how do we know when this information comes out, these murderers and rapists, that they're not looking at the information to find more victims and stuff, like, oh, this person might know too much because they were in the area. These are all things that that cross our minds, but it could happen. It could be like that. We don't know because we're not the ones surveilling people. We're not the ones doing that. But to answer your question there, Nathan, I don't think it even is a question anymore. Like, why are they looking at us and not that 1% or that 0.5% or whatever the percentage is of the actual people? You know why? It's because your presence is now in a data center somewhere, and your data is being used for other things. It's being used for something without your knowledge already. And so what else is it being used for without your knowledge? And so people can tell me one thing and how things actually are and stuff, but you have all this data and information in the cloud and stuff. You ask your AI to do something. Well, you can get away with saying that somebody didn't do that to analyze that data and come to a conclusion with things because it was an AI that did it, right? An AI is not a person, so nobody has access to this, but our AI does. Well, who has access to that? That's classified, right? We don't know.
Right. And then they just push on the accountability onto something else, and nobody ever has to take the blame for what they did. So
yep. And here's the thing: are these things protecting us from human trafficking? Are they really saving people? Here's the thing: I still haven't seen this in action. I have not seen where this is useful or helpful. I have not seen, even with this stream, I have not seen this information is not landed on my desk. I'm still unaware of this. But here's the thing: is like with the Epstein files being released.
For just a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's important to mention that when I first contacted Dan, the main thing that I said was, we don't ever hear the positive stories about Flock. And we would like to hear actual cases where it solved crimes. And we'd like to hear the data on how many crimes it's solving, how many people it's helping. And he had like the one Brown case, which is like the one they like to talk about a lot, but he didn't have any like overall data numbers or anything about how much it's actually helping. And I didn't hear very many specific cases. And it was surprising to me because that was the number one thing I said I was
the only one
in
that he said. Yeah, I think that was the only one.
So we still yet to see the positive light.
But then he also said the opposite too. He said, oh, well, everybody harps on these 1 or 2 bad cases. It's like, okay, but you only brought one good case. So
Right. And so, I mean, if these things are stopping human trafficking, like, dude, we can't even stop the trafficking stuff at the main level of what's on the news right now, right? I don't want to bring politics into this, but Epstein didn't kill himself.
No, we did not.
I
plays
mean,
in
it's
Canada.
becoming apparent, isn't it?
Is that an Israeli?
No, the thing is that it's that we're being, you know, like you said, it's we're being sold one thing, but it does another, and we have all these victims who, not only do we have victims who have been stalked by law enforcement, but we have, you know, not to get political again, but there's people who were involved in very high profile political things like the Epstein files who were witnesses who claim to be stalked or run off the road, even in some cases. And how are they tracking these people to do these things to them? Like,
you know how they're doing it. You know how
so
they're doing it.
it's terrible that though, and like Chris said, it may be a low percentage to them, but it's something to those girls, and there's a whole group of them willing to say something, and we literally had our attorney general just not even hear it. It's sad, you know.
And I honestly, with all of this, I have yet to hear the positivity or the enthusiasm or the passion behind why these things are needed in our communities. And you know, and I've not even been presented with how they're helping. So I mean, I'm not
unsolved murders, and you know, Flock came into be 2007 right here, but it really took off right around here. So the number of unsolved murders has risen sharply overall since Flock has taken over. So,
and
I mean,
how
I would
many
love to believe
suspects?
it's working.
Can this be used as an alibi? Like somebody goes and murders somebody, but they have somebody drive their car in an area where their car is like flagged. And so they're like, oh yeah, well, we're ruling this out. We're ruling these people out because they were in this area, right? We don't scan faces. We only scan cars, but we know that this person only drives this car, but then they went out and committed this crime. And how many people like live in a house or something where people are borrowing each other's cars?
Just rent a car too.
Yeah, you can rent a car. I mean, I'm sure that can come back on you. Stuff,
I mean, it takes all of 35 seconds to replace the license plate on a car too.
Like you can literally print out a fake license plate matching someone else's, tape it onto your license plate of a matching car and go drive around and get them in trouble. You know what I mean? There's so many possibilities there.
You know, that's also what they said too, is that we know the whole car because we're taking pictures of the whole car, not just the license plate.
Yeah.
There's this kind of weird juxtaposition where they're like admitting that they're taking more than just a license plate, but saying they only have the license plate. It's okay, so then how could you figure out if this was the same car if they had two different license plates and you're only a license plate reader? So
that's the thing, is that they talked, what did catch my attention was the bumper stickers, because people tend to put statements on their bumper stickers, tend to be political, they tend to be leaning some way, and I think that a lot of people get judged by what's put on their bumper stickers. So why would they be looking at that stuff?
And here's the thing is like, there's already the videos of like ICE and stuff out there calling us, like, not us, but like, you know, people, domestic terrorists. Like, these are not words that should be thrown around like that. Like, terrorists are Allah Akbar, go AK-47 people, like mass school shoot. Those are terrorists. Those are domestic terrorists. But you being pissed off as a person, I mean, that's probably, I think that is the American way, right? It's being pissed off about something. Now you're a domestic terrorist. Makes no sense.
I think people being harassed by cameras is a bit of a domestic terrorism issue, isn't it?
For sure. Like, look at this. This is their freeform search. This is what like their AI cameras, and they just like type in camo hat, forest green sweater, and it just searches through the database and picks that out. So I mean, it's like, for it to be able to do that, we understand how technology works. For in order for it to be able to do that, it is analyzing everything that camera sees and cataloging all of it and analyze, you know, trying to figure out everybody, who is who, what they're wearing, where they're going. You know what I mean? To be able to just type in, show me everybody in a camo hat and a forest green sweater, and have every person in the city that matches that pop up with their address of where they are. That's horrifying.
It is pretty disconcerting. Or remember I was talking to Shane about the coffee shop where it tracked the employees' productivity of who made one of them made 10 cups, the other one made
Oh, I
9, and
saw that.
the one that had
That
less
was so
was
dystopian.
I was like, wow, we're literally just I would not want to work there. Have a little number above my head on how many times I served a customer. Maybe you took a little extra time to be friendly with that customer. 'Cause I used
You
to
know,
work in
there's
the
there's
restaurant
somebody
business.
in some room sitting somewhere going like, how can we make this better, more efficient, so that we
Let's
can get more
fire that
sales?
guy.
Yeah, look at
Fire
this
that guy.
person. This person is there. They stopped what they're doing for 5 minutes. They did not wipe down the counters. They are not efficient enough. Fired. And
I
you know
don't
what? I'm
want to.
not. That's being
We're
ruled by the AI, by proxy. You know,
Yeah,
look
there
at
it
this
is.
shit.
I don't want to be a number. Look at the number. You have a number over your head. But it's because maybe she's a supervisor, and maybe she's in but to any kind of executive, they say, well, Anna is the most, productive, even though she was there for, 12 hours. It just makes no sense. Like,
Man, Olga's
why
only on
would
3
I
we
mean,
want
cups.
to
She needs
they're
work
to
right
pick
about
there?
that
Olga.
game
She's
up,
trash. She's just sitting there. She ain't doing
dude,
nothing.
bro.
And
Yeah, but
3
you don't
cups.
know.
On you,
Olga
Olga.
might have been the one that wiped down all the counters and refilled all the stuff, and maybe she didn't make the cups, but she made the cups happen.
and you as a customer, they're watching you eat and they were asking, how long has this person been here? Are they spending a little too much time in
Yeah,
our store? What
that one's
what is
disturbing too. Like, you want to kick people out because they're spending too much time there? That's
now I don't want to
weird.
drink coffee there.
I don't want to go anywhere. Like,
Would you
what the
want to go
hell?
have coffee there at that place? Would you want to be
No.
there knowing that they're
No.
analyzing you that closely?
And like most people,
I
like they
don't
go to
want to.
coffee shops, they pull out their laptops. Like, you think that thing's not recording you using your laptop?
I
Like,
used to
look,
do my homework. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, these are like this is literally 1984 bullshit with
It's not
with
okay.
uh with
And I just want to
with
point out
the
something too. Like, regularly, their defense that they constantly use as far as misuse on this is, well, if they search for this stuff in our system, then it gets flagged. We'll see it. It'll show up in audit logs. Well, first of all, it only shows up if the city is actually doing regular audits, which a lot of them aren't. But even if they are, this they can still get around that. And this also is the problem for their whole "we only keep the data for 30 days and then it gets deleted" thing, is that the customers are allowed to export all of the data anytime they want to whatever system they want, which Flock has no idea what they're doing. They can't see
Right. Yeah.
if the
It just
person is
sounds
looking
like
at their own hard drive. So functionally, like, none of that does anything. Like, if the police, if they want to misuse it, they're just downloading all the data and they have all access to any time they want, and Flock knows nothing about it.
I mean, to me, it just sounds like legal mumbo jumbo where they've put, the onus on their customer, which is us, the government, and the police departments to say, all right, yeah, it's your problem if anything happens. We don't own the data. We don't have anything to do with this. We're just giving it to you. And whatever happens to it is your problem.
Absolutely, and from Jonathan here, when people realize that they're being observed, they tend to change their behaviors. When I know I'm being watched and stuff, I'll trip over a curb, laying on my face and shit. Like, I start doing some goofy shit when I'm on camera. I don't know why. I mean, it's just one of those things. But people, they do change things. They start doing things to impress. Like, hey, look, I'm not doing anything wrong, and like being, well, just
Like
be
virtue
yourself.
signaling.
Like, it's taken away our ability to be ourselves. Oh yeah, and I just read the comment. Why would you want to be in a place where you can't be yourself? So we're all the same wavelength here, right? Thank you, Suzy. Why would you want to be in a place where you can't be yourself? Isn't it the world taking something from us with all of this? Like, isn't it oppressive? I don't know what the words are for this. Like, I'm not smart enough to know the words, but isn't it wrong? Like, what's right about this? I can't think of anything.
It's
Yeah,
invasive.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's my earbud malfunctioned. I didn't hear you. Go on.
I was just saying, there's just so many things I'm thinking back to some of the things that Dan said, and like, there's so many that are like just kind of like skirting around the truth. Like they're saying, for example, we don't even know where the cameras are placed. The customer chooses where they place them, but Flock installs them. So you do know where they're placed. Like, you know, like maybe you didn't choose it, but you do know where it was placed. And secondly, they recommend where they should be placed. They tell people where to put it in order to get the most data and where it'll be most effective. So functionally, they know exactly where all these cameras are for the most part. The only ones they might not know is if it's you know, one of the private cameras and the person moves it after the fact, maybe then, but like that's a very, very small percentage of them.
Indeed, it is. Well, I think everybody, I think we're on the same wavelength with everything. This is how it is. You know, I think we had a great stream today. Does anybody else have anything to add? I say we wrap this up, and you know, I'm looking forward to my hamster ball. I really am, and I'll probably be making more clever jokes about this. But think about it; it's probably the only way from all this, right? And that's the scariest part is when it comes down to it. All we can do to fight against this is a hamster ball. I think the world needs more solutions, and I think only together can we find them. So I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jonathan, for showing up. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Suzy. Thank you so much, Chris, for all the research you put into everything. I think we had a wonderful day today. And, you know, with all else said, the only thing left to say is onward.
We build a safe place where the speech is always free, where cypherpunks go to just hide and speak. Hide and speak. We stay in the shadows and make some noise. Hide and speak. Digital freedom, yeah, that is our choice. Hide and speak. Privacy doesn't mean not having a voice. Hide and speak. What you want to share is only your choice. Hide and speak.
The early internet was the wild, wild west. Strange. Free. We explored, we broke things. And yes, we failed. No rules. And that was beautiful. But times have changed. We hesitate. We censor ourselves because we know they're watching. Surveillance kills curiosity, turning the internet from a frontier of hope into a cage of silence. And your VPN? It's based on trust. For let's be real, nobody has ever lied to me, said nobody ever. Yet true privacy is still within reach. vp.net doesn't rely on trust, it runs on real-time proof. Because privacy is about becoming your truest self when no one's watching. So you can be the best you when they are. Otherwise be an NPC, a digital product, and lose. vp.net, don't trust, verify.